Hey everybody, welcome to Frame Trap. It's a doozy this week. Joining me is Michael Huber at the end there.
Yo!
Right in between us, Ian Hank.
Yo!
And I'm going to be hosting you through this. I'm Ben Moore. We are in it. We're in the fall season. We're coming up on holiday. Mm-hmm. We've got deals coming. We got games coming. We got food coming.
Bundles.
Stampedes.
But we're also, I think, at a time where we can kind of begin to look back on 2019. Yeah. What's your big 2019 takeaway at this point in time?
That Resident Evil 2 was remade and is phenomenal.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's a good takeaway.
Same. Resident Evil 2 is good. Control is good. Disco Elysium is good.
Yeah. I've seen just online and stuff, which is a vast place. So it's not really saying much. But I've seen some sentiment that like 2019 isn't quite as good as maybe earlier years. And like I can see where people are coming from. But I think about Sekiro. I think about Devil May Cry 5. I think about Resident Evil 2 remake. A lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff.
Luigi's Mansion 3 is so good. Like, I knew it was going to be good. I knew I was going to like it. But it's always nice when you get something that you're anticipating that just exceeds your expectations, even when those expectations are high.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
Definitely, a lot of things got bumped from 2019. 2019 could have been, like, really top tier. Yeah, really good year, but a lot of stuff got...
What's the worst bump?
Pushed. Doom. Doom was a big one. And in the year with a Doom game, just because, like, what Doom is, it's, like, one of the classic gaming franchises. So it's always good when a new one comes out. So, think about ending the year with that.
Yeah, think about how stacked the beginning of 2020 is now. It's kind of bonkers. Doom, Last of Us, Cyberpunk. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's going to be...
Final Fantasy 7, yeah.
4 massive games.
I'm a little torn because... on one hand, it's really nice to have all of those games so close together because then it's just like, well, life is just going to be exciting for a few months. Like, it's just going to be awesome, and everyone's going to be talking about it. It's going to be, uncharted territory in a really cool way. But at the same time, I also feel like, and I even felt this, I think, kind of with the back-to-back-to-back of Sekiro and Kingdom Hearts 3 and...
Resident
Evil 2, yes. Where it was like, I really enjoyed this, okay, but I also have this other thing looming, and you just don't get to process things as thoroughly. Yeah. And I like sitting with things for a while. I think that's nice. Sometimes you finish something and you're just immediately ready to put it on the shelf. But I think when something is so exceptionally good, it's kind of nice to like have that be the conversation thing for a while.
Totally.
But speaking of long-awaited things... We have one of those dropping today, and that is Death Stranding.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So I have to say this. I need to make a note so I say it at the end of the podcast as well. But I have to say review copy provided by PlayStation.
Review copy
provided by PlayStation.
We have to put that on the screen too.
We do.
PlayStation. Review copy.
Review copy provided by PlayStation, but it wasn't just one review copy, which is usually the case. We got quite a few.
We got 8, baby.
Yeah, I didn't remember how many
because
we got.
Don said, "I'll wait," and we were all like, "What?" Okay, Don.
Awesome. And not everybody has played through it, but I've played through all of it. Obviously, I reviewed it. Huber, you've played through all of it. Ian's played through all of it, and Damiani has played through.
Has Brad beaten it?
And
Brad has also played through all of it.
Just Brandon and Kyle haven't beaten it yet.
But I said really a lot of what I wanted to say in that review. And so
Great review, by the way.
Thank you. I just want to kind of get your guys' takes on it and how you feel and maybe like what the process of playing Death Stranding was like for you.
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I don't know, man.
Where do you even begin with this game? I guess just start at the beginning.
Yeah.
The game opens phenomenally.
Yeah.
Just throws you in. I'm always a fan of that, where it doesn't really waste time setting the tone, setting the world. And I think that mystery in the beginning, I was just hooked on that.
Yeah.
So I definitely like the way this game starts a lot. I think that's important for me because I think over time, I liked kind of the beginning of the game more than the end. Just because in the beginning, there's so much mystery. You have a lack of tools. Like, I liked being fish out of water, confused, struggling to traverse even like basic topography.
Real quick for people in the audience worried about this, we're not going to spoil any
Yes.
specifics in this show.
No.
We're actually NDA'd not to until the 12th.
We wouldn't anyway. That's what spoiler mode is for.
That's what spoiler mode is for. But just in case you're worried, you'll hear impressions but not spoilers. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because you said the word ending. And
I know.
People get nervous.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm just. I was just referring to. I like being less equipped.
Yeah.
I guess just in games in general, and especially Death Stranding, I really liked just not having a lot of supplies early on, and as the game went on, you accumulate more and more stuff, and you just have more utility, and a lot of it became trivial in a way, like the enemies and stuff. A lot of it became routine for me. So yeah, I'm kind of in. I guess I'm just kind of in the middle of Death Stranding. I love a lot of it, but a lot of it was so just like trivial, I guess is the word I say. I don't know. Like the enemies coming at you and stuff. You know, there was never a real threat.
Yeah.
And that hurts me. That hurts the stakes for me when the story is like such high stakes, you know, but then anytime an enemy is there, I'm just like, all right.
Do either of you know what the difficulty settings actually change? I only played through on normal.
So I played through all of it on normal, and then I did up through chapter 2 on hard as I was getting footage to try it out. And I can't say, like, I don't have a list of things that have changed, but just based on my own firsthand experience, it seems like, especially with BTs, they're a little bit more numerous, and that your BB will, that meter will go down a little bit more aggressively. But it wasn't crazy. And even handling the like, I had pretty much just as easy of a time handling mules on normal as I did on hard. Like, it wasn't
that was
huge
my
change.
because someone on Twitter was asking me like, hey, what difficulty should I play it on? Do you know what it changes? And like, I didn't want to sound negative, but I was like, I don't know for sure, but if I were to guess, raising the difficulty would just make the parts of the game you're not going to like take longer. Like more BTs is just more annoying.
Kind
Not
of,
more
but it
fun
also
to
raises
me.
the stakes for me. I don't know, like being able, like if the BTs in the game are such a threat and it's so menacing, and the trailers and everything, and the cinematics are like, BTs are here, do, and then I'm just like, throw a can or like walk on by, no problem.
That was
So
not
that hurt it for me a little bit.
that was not the impression that I got. I have, again, I can't say like definitively, but based on what I've experienced, if you're thinking about playing it on hard, you should probably play it on hard. Like if that's something you're kind of teetering between, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem for you.
Yeah, and you can change any time. And then like the beginning though, like I started hard, went down to normal, then put it back on hard later on because the beginning is a steep learning curve.
It is,
but
yeah.
I loved that. The game throws so much at you.
I actually wanted to talk to you about
Yeah.
that. Because you were mentioning that, how you really liked the beginning and the process of learning. And I did too, because just figuring out, like, okay, how much cargo should I carry? How much should I pick up in the world? When should I carry things by hand? When should I use my ladders? That process was really fun.
Yeah.
And especially around the point where you get vehicles, it was like, oh, when should I take a vehicle? Oh, I can't pass this region. Should I abandon this vehicle? Should I take another one? What are the differences between the trucks and motorcycles? Like, figuring all of that out was really, really fun. Yeah. And I don't want to spoil just some of the gameplay stuff, but you do get some pretty incredible tools that are really fun, that are either fun, I think, or extremely useful, or a combination of both. And that whole process of learning is great. But I also kind of agree with you that it's weird. There are times where you're kind of like in the sweet spot and you're not. And what I would describe the sweet spot is where it's like you're learning, or there's some sort of challenge that you just kind of organically stumble upon. What I mean by that, where it's like, how am I going to cross this?
Yeah.
What should I do with this river? And those things were actually kind of interesting to solve. But then there are a lot of times where like, this delivery feels the same as like these other 10 deliveries, and I'm not learning, and I'm not being challenged, and I'm not changing.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this up and down thing where you'll be really in it for a while, and then you'll be out of it, and then you'll be really in it for a while. And Ian and I were talking on Slack with each other as we were playing it, and you could see that in the tone of our conversations.
Yeah.
Where it'd be like, oh, I really like it. Oh, I don't know, I don't like this. And it would be a very up and down kind of experience.
The first few days with Death Stranding were very interesting for me because day one, I was in love with this game.
Yes.
I was like, this is GOTY for sure. Day two, I was actually like, oh man, I'm feeling kind of bored and frustrated like annoyed with having to go back and forth. Like there's a part in chapter 2 where you have to go back and forth through this kind of irritating BT section. And it got to the point like the third or fourth time where I was just like, I get it. Like I don't want to have to crouch through this entire 300-yard area every time. I just,
Yeah.
So I started just like driving a motorcycle through the river to try to, once I got that. And then the third day, I was in love with it again.
Yeah.
So it was like a very weird process. And that's sort of the experience of playing this game is kind of weird. It has like a bizarre gameplay, I want to say arc, but it's not. It's like a bunch of bell curves like after each other. It's like a sine wave where things are really hard, and then you get some really fun tools that help it get really easy, or like not really easy, but like that make delivering a breeze again, And then they make the game harder with those tools, and then you get new tools and it makes it easier again. But I know what they were going for, I feel like, but it sometimes on some deliveries just ends up feeling a little weird because it's like one step forward, two steps back, sort of. It's like, okay, I got the tools to make me awesome at delivering. Okay, but now they're throwing this other obstacle in my way that it doesn't change it in a different way. It just redoes the thing the tool I just got made it easier for me to do. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm not sure.
Like they add a new stumbling block, a new challenge, but instead of being a new challenge, it's just like the version of the same challenge that you had plus 5, and I just got a tool that helped me deal with that challenge plus 3. So now it's just the same amount of difficult to walk over this terrain because they just made the terrain the same amount more difficult as the tool I just got. So it feels like you never actually... It's really hard. I could really easily explain this if we were spoiling mechanics, but I don't want to. But it's just weird to have them give you a tool and then just raise the difficulty of the thing that tool helps you address. And they do that like 4 times.
Yeah,
so
I
it feels
think
like you're the same amount of capable for the lighter half of the game.
It's weird because I think there are some increases in difficulty that they do a pretty good job of layering on, where like I feel like water becomes a bigger and bigger challenge in an interesting way. And when you have that first moment of like, oh, wait, I can't just easily cross this, and I'm drifting down, and all my gear is falling off. It's kind of panic-inducing.
Yeah.
Or when you have to go really far, and you're like, oh man, like my boots are almost destroyed. Because what they do is they just kind of keep extending things, like you were talking about. They'll take like a mechanic, like, hey, here's a mountainous region, but now here's a super mountainous region, or hey, we're gonna have you go a long way. Now we're gonna have you super go a long way. And so they kind of condition you to really think about the planning. And I love that push and pull between the, all right, I got to really think about this delivery. What do I need? Do I have room to be extra cautious and bring a lot of stuff? Do I think I'm going to fight things? And if anything that you bring, like you have to work it into the loadout. And I think when it's firing on all cylinders and it's making those decisions interesting, that's awesome.
Yes.
The problem is they give you a lot of tools that the challenges don't rise to the occasion of. Like, you can just decimate mules with the rope.
Everything.
So
even with your bare hands.
That's what I'm talking about.
I didn't even use the strand, which is a rope, for the first like 2 or 3 mule camps that I knocked out every single member.
Yeah.
And like,
And the bola gun is
It
insane.
reminded me of like the old Assassin's Creed games where
Yeah.
you would have like an
just
army
square.
of guys around you,
Yeah.
and you'd just be able to take every single
Yeah.
one of them out in the exact same way.
Totally.
That's what it felt like, and so
Which-
that was really disappointing.
and I know that's not what the game is about.
Right,
but,
that's
like,
what I
it's
was gonna
still
say,
a part
yeah.
of it. It's still
That's what I was gonna say. Is like
Yeah.
it's an interesting. This game is such an interesting experiment, and I mean, say what you will about it. I'm sure everyone will, but like
the story's awesome.
the story's really interesting. It's not about fighting. It's certainly not about killing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about connecting and bringing things together, and like the gameplay focuses on that.
Yeah, that's
and
what I wanna talk about
think
next.
largely in a really successful way, like the Stranding genre that he's invented.
Yeah, so that's actually a big point that I want to bring up.
Falling down a cliff and finding a rope from Ben
Yes.
was a magical experience.
Okay, yes, this is
Yes. Finding Ian's motorcycle parked ominously near a cliff was haunting.
Yeah.
I was like, Ian was here and something happened.
Yeah.
It is such a magical moment.
Yeah.
Because it feels so organic. Like the game does a good job of presenting it, where you'll have a moment of crisis or something goes wrong. For me, a lot of times it was like a battery on something, where I would need my some sort of battery recharge for one reason or another, and I'd be like, I hope to God there's something nearby. I hope to God there's something nearby, and then like in the horizon you can see it, and another player built that, and it sounds so corny and cheesy and lame, but the way that the game works, and you just spend so much time on foot and you spend so much time looking at nothing, that you kind of have these weird moments of connection with people without words. It kind of reminds me of Journey in that way.
Totally.
Those moments where I would have where it was like, oh, just the way that we're interacting is like kind of fascinating and cool. And to me, that was absolutely, bar none, like the best part of Death Stranding.
Especially too, like going alone for a while on a delivery, you know, climbing a very intense thing and going through the snow. It's just like, this game made me think about a lot of things, like life and the state of everything and the world. Like I had those feelings, and some of those moments were so impactful, you know, and then you get to a place and then you see like, oh, you know, people's little buildings here and signs like, hey, keep going, like you
Right.
can do it. Like those moments were just, yeah, one of a kind. Felt so original, felt so unique and special.
Yeah.
And just like the way the like system kind of works out, like in my playthrough of it, I would see a bunch of people post like just like emoticons at the beginning of town, and you'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
people are just like trying this out and trying to get a feel for it. But then you would see like those one or two guys that were like really committed,
Yeah.
and like they were carrying everybody else on their backs, and like they were getting all the attention. It was interesting just to see that kind of social system play out, where like there were definitely like not unsung heroes, but like people I didn't even know that just kind of kept popping up throughout the entirety of the game, as other people would kind of fall off, and I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, talking about this, I do think this part of it, the social system, is really, really cool.
Like building a road was so fun. Like are we allowed to talk about a road?
I wasn't sure. I wasn't going to mention them specifically. I was going to say larger community projects. But that was a really good moment, because like I was working on 3 sections of that I built by myself completely in my game.
Yeah.
And I was like, something must be weird. So I actually like restart. I just had the game like running in rest mode or whatever for a day or two. And then so I finally like shut the game down and came back into it. And then like the entire region was done. And I was like, oh damn, like this is amazing. Like
when
Yeah.
you're like, I want to be careful. I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to
speak too
spoil,
heavily.
because like that's the thing about it is like you get into an area and before you connect the network, you're on your own by and large. And I think that's a really smart gameplay mechanic, because you get to experience the stark loneliness of a new zone, right? And then once you connect it, you get that feeling, that dopamine, that connection, the bonds
Bonds,
of,
big time.
of getting everyone else's stuff. And there's a thing, I mean, I'm really not going to specify this thing, but there's a mechanic that you unlock way later in the game that is just so nice. And I started building all kinds of these things to try to connect everything, and it is so much fun. And it was organic fun that I was driving myself because I wanted to complete a task, that I'm like, okay, other people are going to get a use out of this. And that's what I really think is successful about this is you start thinking, at least I did, I started thinking about myself, but also more than just myself.
Right.
Or I was like, okay, I'm going to do the extra work of carrying a bunch of extra crap with me right now through this really irritating area so that the next person doesn't have to. Or like once they connect it, they can just use this to get back, and like that feels really cool.
Right. Right. And there's been a lot of controversy, and I've even seen this response to my own review, and like I get where people are coming from. I get why this criticism is happening, where they're like, you say the game is boring, like if it's not fun, I don't care. And it's like I get where you're coming from. I understand why you would have that concern, but it's the way the game uses that mundaneness, that boringness, to enhance those moments where it's like, if you're doing a delivery and you're like, man, this sucks, I'm going to try to make it easier for other people, which is exactly like Ian is saying. And then like the next day you log in, it's like, hey, somebody used your thing.
Yeah.
That feels really cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that first part wasn't boring, but it was because you kind of went through this process, there was some value there.
Totally.
And I found that value really interesting, and it's not a common experience that I have with games. And so that was fascinating to me and something that I got enjoyment of, where it's like there are times where I actively dislike this, but through this dislike and through like some of the more frustrating parts, the way that I'm interacting with people and how we're solving this problem is really, really cool.
For me, I think I was never bored, I don't think, but frustrated is the word I would use. Like there were times where I was like, man, I do not want to trudge through this area again,
For me, it was
hang
just
on,
autopilot, yeah.
well, that's the other thing. Other times, it was a meditative experience where I was like, traversing this land is actually relaxing to me. Like, I never didn't want to be playing the game,
Totally.
I want to, to
Which is
jump in on
weird.
that, I really want to give credit to the music as well, because there are a lot of games where it's just like, I'll be playing a game and like periodically I'll kind of have that moment where I'll take a step back where I'm like, oh, the music is really good, but I don't think I fully appreciate it just because you get used to it because it's happening all the time. Whereas in Death Stranding, music is like its own special treat. You spend so much time not listening to any music, and when it comes on and it's just absolutely gorgeous, you really just kind of appreciate that simple moment. And there were a lot of times, like there's one song in particular that I just absolutely adore, thanks to Death Stranding, and it was nice to forge a connection with a song like that. So, yeah,
It's such an interesting game, and it's such a funny, like in gaming society right now, it's such a funny moment, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what the general opinion of this game is once people have actually played it, because like the comments on the review, you have to take with a grain of salt, because it's like you haven't played this game. Like you can say that
we've mostly talked about gameplay. Like story is so important to that, all of that, right?
And it's interesting because I feel like my opinion of Death Stranding kept evolving through the very end of the story itself.
Yeah,
because there's a lot that happens at the end. But I do want to kind of, but this complaint applies to both the story and the gameplay, because we're talking about the things that we like with the deliveries, and you talked about the meditative state, and just talking about the social interactions. There are parts of this game that, when I really just sit there and think, I'm like, this doesn't add anything, and unfortunately, there are some of the most spoilery parts, and so the way that I will talk around that is there are times where we talked about, hey, this is a game about deliveries. There are times where you're just shooting dudes, and outside of like kind of window dressing, they keep reusing them in the same way, and it's just kind of very basic. And I don't think this is a game that I think needed more editing than it got. Like there are things that happen in this game where it's like, I wish you would have taken a step back
or just done it once.
Right. Right. There is
because it's not. It doesn't change.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing is you're like, this wasn't very good the first time, and you kept doing it. Why did you
lot.
keep doing
Yeah.
it? Yeah. And so there's like kind of this like indulgentness with this game that I wish was sharpened, I think, a little bit more than it is.
Also, it's weird too, and without getting specific, the section you're talking about, there's a strange disconnect because this game's biggest strength is that the form is the function. Like the stuff that is the best is also the lesson, the moral of the story.
I agree.
Whereas these sections, even what you're doing ultimately doesn't tie in directly with what that part of the story is talking about. I feel like it's just like, here's a weird thing you do. Also this, they are kind of related, but not directly, or at least not in a way that's impactful or meaningful to me.
Right.
And I find that really strange in this game too.
There's a line from one of the characters, Higgs, who it almost seemed like commentary on itself, and you and I talked about this, where he's like, this is what you came here for, right?
Tired of the grind.
Right. And it's like, no.
It's actually, no, it's not. Yeah.
And I think my favorite parts of Death Stranding are the parts where it is focusing on the delivery, and it feels like it's kind of this complete idea, with exactly like you're saying. It's tied into the themes of the storytelling and feels like it's a storytelling vehicle itself. And then you have these other super gamey parts that just don't fit and feel like they're coming almost from something else. And I think what's also frustrating is like when you're trying to switch weapons or just move around, it's like, oh, this game was built for delivery. Like it doesn't feel like it's meant to do this.
Especially when if you fall over or get hit, you drop the thing you're carrying, which sometimes is the gun you need to deal with the situation that just knocked you on your ass. And it's like, that's a little bit annoying. But yeah, it's funny. I've been trying to think of an analog for this game because it is very unique. But what I think is ironic is the closest thing I can come up with is that this game is kind of No Man's Sky with a Metal Gear story on it in a weird way. Because like if you look bare bones at what you're doing, you're going from one place to another place, and all the buildings are identical, and just there you don't even like talk to a person. It's just like a hologram of a person, right? And it's like, that's No Man's Sky. You go to an identical station and there's the same alien sitting behind a desk. You know what I mean? And I mean, obviously there's way more to this game than No Man's Sky, but like if you're boiling it down, it's like No Man's Sky with Astroneer with a Metal Gear 4 story on it. Yeah, which is not bad. I'm not saying that's bad.
The thing that makes the No Man's Sky comparison difficult for me, just speaking of somebody who played No Man's Sky at launch and reviewed it, is that I think I felt emptier when I walked away from No Man's Sky because I didn't have those quote unquote magical moments with the other people in the same way. Like that really added a lot. Whereas I felt like the systems, pretty much every system that I was engaging in didn't feel like it went far enough in No Man's Sky. And I do, like, I have a lot of problems with Death Stranding, and I think there are a lot of things to criticize, but I think it's him talking about wanting to make a new genre and prioritizing these social aspects. It seems, before I played the game, it seemed like, oh, you're going a little far there, Kojima. Like, I don't know if that will hold true. Now playing it, I'm like, okay, I have a better idea of what you're going for, and I think I can appreciate it much better now that I've actually seen the concept in action.
Yeah, I just think the gameplay doesn't go far enough.
Sure.
I wish the game was a lot shorter, like you were saying. Like, if you edited a lot out, I think this game would have hit even harder.
I agree.
But again, like a lot of the criticisms, I think coming from us today, or like me as well, was a lot on the gameplay. Just that's my main criticism, is just the gameplay. When you add the story in though, and those bonds and connections from like multiplayer stuff, to me it was I liked it more than I didn't.
I think the thing that's frustrating to me about the story, and I don't know if either of you agree, where there are things that I really like about the story, it just sometimes feels like I wish we could have gotten there in a more graceful way.
Yeah,
Like,
because the editing would have worked for the story and the gameplay
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
sometimes you're just kind of like waiting, I feel like, for Death Stranding to like get to this point, and it's like, no, first we're going to take 3 laps around here,
Yeah.
and then we'll get to the point. And they're just, again, it kind of talking about that editing process of there is really interesting stuff in there. And we actually had a frame track conversation about these big name actors and everybody that is going to be in there and how is that was going to make us feel. I actually, now having played through Death Stranding, it added a lot for me. Like some of the performances, some performative moments in the game are some of my favorite moments of the whole thing. And I talk about it in the review, where just looking at somebody and seeing the anguish that they're going through is pretty compelling. Like just watching them on screen, and that's really, really nice.
Yeah, I think, and like to clarify my earlier point, I didn't hate No Man's Sky when it came out, and certainly it's way, way better now. So I kind of meant that not as like a dig, which I think a lot of people would take that as a dig, but I realized like I kind of like No Man's Sky. Now it's great. But anyway, but yeah, like the weird thing with the story is the writing feels kind of, I don't know, like inconsistent maybe. Like some storylines are really good and powerful, and then other storylines are just like, what? Like, all right. And the funny thing with Death Stranding is, because everyone before Death Stranding came out was addicted to being confused by the trailers and stuff.
Yeah.
Even though they're sort of straightforward, but like, the weird thing in this game is more just like that the game exists and it is what it is. The story actually wraps up more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And like, in a good way. And it's interesting that the stuff, like you said, the stuff I ended up really loving in the story were some of these just smaller, little more intimate moments that happen here and there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I feel like the overarching story depends maybe a little too heavily on you reading every single one of the interviews or emails or whatever to really understand the context of what's going on, because it doesn't, like, the main plot doesn't like hit
Reading
hard, you know?
Reading the emails and the interviews adds a lot.
Yeah.
Some really good moments happen in the emails, and it's kind of interesting because there are moments in the emails that I'm like, oh, it's really interesting that you handled this moment in the email in this way. I kind of see what you're going for, and I think that's cool. But then there are other times, and I don't know if you guys agree with this. I'd be curious to get your opinion. I think a big problem with a lot of the on-screen, the cutscene moments, the like, hey, we're telling a story here, moments of Death Stranding, is that it kind of treats everybody the same. And what I mean by that is your kind of core cast is, it's like, okay, this is the part where you're going to learn about their tragic backstory and how crazy everything is. Okay, now we're going to focus on them. And you talked about the beginning of the game and how much you liked it, and reflecting on the beginning of the game, what's really cool is you're just with a guy who's doing a job, and by going on this job with him, by going and burning this body, you kind of get a sense of how this world functions on a day-to-day level, and it feels grounded. Whereas, like, you don't get that in a lot of the rest of the game, and I think it needed more times like that. It needed characters that maybe weren't going to be, like, super dramatic or, you know, super bombastic in what they have to tell you or what they have to reveal or how they tie into the broader mystery, but are just characters that are maybe going through smaller scale problems that give you like more of a realistic view of this world. I can
think of one side story where that's kind of the case. The junk dealer stuff.
Sure.
That's like but that's like the only one.
Sure.
Kind of.
There were some good ones. I found some really good Easter eggs and secrets. Ben, I know for a fact you didn't find one thing. Remember I told you about like early on.
Sure.
Because I really did a lot of side quests too, like early on. I got some stars. And,
right.
Like, there's some cool stuff you can get, and like some cool side quest payoffs. But again, editing inconsistency.
No,
some of them feel like
and
filler.
I think that's good. I think you should have optional missable stuff that adds to that.
Totally.
But I'm just saying, like, in the main story, I could have gone for more of that.
Agreed.
Like things that, like, hey, you can't miss. Everybody's gonna get this.
Completely agree.
And I think that is what is cool about that first section of the game.
Yeah.
Where you're with that guy.
For sure.
So
Is this is a weird question. Is this an open world game even? Because like I think about open world, right? Like Breath of the Wild and stuff. I want to go explore. Like I want to look over there and go see what it is. In this game, I didn't. I wanted to just go from point A to point B and experience what was in between, but like it's so dangerous and arduous to go off the beaten path or without a reason to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think early on it kind of trained me to explore because I found what I thought was kind of like a hidden survivor, like out there. I don't think it's a spoiler. It's just like he's there on the map. Like if you look on the map, there's like a thing there.
You talking about Luden's fan?
Nope.
Oh.
But it's like in the very first area of the game. So I think it's very early on. But there's some like stuff there, and I don't know. I think by finding things that it felt like I wasn't supposed to find it. Again, I don't think it's a secret at all. It just feels like you're not really supposed to find it, and it felt natural. It felt like, oh, I discovered something.
I wish I knew what you were talking about because I actually was trained by the game the exact opposite lesson. Because several times, like 3 or 4 times, I saw a thing on the map and went there early.
Yeah.
And because I didn't have a package for them or wasn't supposed to be there in the story yet, there's literally nothing there. Like not even a cutscene. Like even if it's a character where I
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, even if there's a character I know who's supposed to be here and they would be there, there's not even a little thing where it's like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? Well, hi. Because in the reality of the game, they would acknowledge you.
Yeah.
And like they just don't. It's just stark nothingness. And that happened to me like 5 times. Like it got to the point where I was like, I am not going anywhere I'm not supposed to because the game is teaching me not to.
Yeah, Huber, it's hard because I like you're kind of right. In there's optional stuff in Death Stranding that I thought was kind of cool, and I was like, oh, I was glad I did that. But it wasn't consistent enough
100%.
to where there was like a ton of optional things I did where I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah,
like this is
sure.
not this feels like total filler.
Totally.
And so it kind of created like sort of a worst case scenario where you're like, do I want to do this? Maybe it'll be good, but maybe it won't. But if I don't do it, I'll miss out. And so that's not really how I want to feel.
Totally. Well, one of the earliest rewards I got felt like a secret, and it was amazing. But then as the game went on and I started continuing to go for the side quest rewards and the side quest stars, I was delivering like a maniac. Those rewards started teetering out and becoming like just like filler and just super boring. So then it got to a point where I just stopped really doing side quests and pretty much just stopped picking up a lot of stuff.
Right.
And just going mainline from point A to point B.
Right. There was a moment that I had where it was like, and I honestly feel like this kind of sums up the whole Death Stranding experience, where something happened in my room that was unexpected, and I was like, oh, whoa, that was kind of cool. The other like 100 times, not 100 times, I'm exaggerating, but the other times that I did this, nothing happened. And that's kind of Death Stranding, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where it's like...
It makes that one time really cool.
Yeah. And so it's... I think that's kind of where you're going to come down on it. You're either going to come down on one side or the other, where it's like, that is worth it to me. Those highs are worth it, but I'm not willing to go through the lows. Or it'll be the opposite.
Well, that the weirdest thing to me about Death Stranding, and I think that's easy to lose sight of because Kojima is such a name, such an auteur, such a big presence in gaming, and we're used to him working for Konami, right? This is technically an independent game. Like Kojima Productions is its own company, and like obviously there were business deals brokered to help finance this game, but that's just how business works. Like, and I think some of the structural stuff, some of the repetitive stuff, the fact that all the buildings look the same, the fact that you deliver to hologram people, the fact that some of the story stuff is repetitive and doesn't really pay off, the fact that your room always looks the same, all these little things are cost-saving measures for what is sort of, I mean, the definition of a AA game is a little weird, but like this game is a smaller game than I think its marketing campaign and the fact that it's Kojima. I think it's a smaller game than most people will assume it is. And like, it's kind of interesting for that. Like, You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, it's super
Yeah.
interesting. I think that's something that I have really come to value in the game. Is like the game is a mess, but it's a really fascinating mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess that made me think about it a lot. It felt new in a really valuable way, and I don't think that needs to translate into a get out of free jail card, or like you should silence all criticism on it. There's a lot to criticize,
yeah.
but this is just my own personal philosophy as somebody who is like will forever. I'm so fascinated with this industry. I will never not be playing video games. I want an industry where games like this can exist, where we can have
absolutely.
fascinating messes. I want us to stumble and be okay with it and like try to get something out of it. Like the thought of a Death Stranding 2 or whatever
Yeah.
is really interesting to me.
Well, and it's funny because it's really weird having this conversation largely before public opinion has rendered its verdict, right? Like the game came out 12 hours ago,
No,
like
it's
publicly.
3 a.m. in New Zealand yesterday. It's
Okay,
been
well,
out for
like,
a while.
Just
Someone's
like
already
not
beat it.
even a day though, but like, you know what I mean? Like as we're recording this, the game hasn't even been out for a full day publicly, and it's like it's such a weird thing because I wonder if it's going to be a victim of its own press and stuff because it's not going to be looked at as a scrappy little indie game. It's going to be compared to the Metal Gear Solid series, and it's going to be compared to, you know, Last of Us and God of War and all these, you know.
Yeah.
When you look at the game, it maybe would be more fair to compare it to No Man's Sky or some of these other games. Obviously the team is way bigger, but like it's funny
But
because
the game, unfortunately, I don't feel like the game can have its cake and eat it too.
No, right,
I mean,
yeah.
when you get out
Sony's
there,
backing.
when you get
Yeah,
out there in
yeah.
big bold letters and say a Hideo Kojima game,
Right.
it's like, well, like you okay, then you brought like if Kojima, like if you're gonna use Kojima in the way that you're using Kojima, that is the kind of comparison that
Yeah.
you're gonna get. That's
Well,
the
that's-
kind of standard that you're gonna.
that's what I'm saying is
be
like
held to.
maybe that wasn't smart on their point. I mean, like it's their biggest sales like it's the only reason everyone's freaking out about Death Stranding, right? Is because it's Kojima.
Yeah.
But like, in a parallel universe where Kojima stayed quiet and they just put out Death Stranding and there was like some buzz, but no one really knew what to expect at all. I really wonder how people would take this game because I feel like right now people are getting divisive and really upset and really into it, and like people like commenting on the review where it's like, oh, this sounds like a 4, this you can't say this, you can't say that, and it's like, and I said this I think to you the other day, but it's like because it's Kojima, because it's Death Stranding, because of all this hype, people need this game to be a 10 or a 1 or they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's like an 8, the fact that it's just like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's not the second coming. It's not total garbage. It's just a good, fun, weird game that's some people are going to like it. Some people won't. You know, take your time with it. You'll have a better time. Like, people can't, like, process things just being okay.
Right. It's an interesting thought process, especially I think when you compare it to PT, because that is what kind of happened with PT
Yeah.
at the very outset, where you didn't have any of that. Like the way that PT went viral, like I remember Hubert and Ellis were just like, "Oh, this thing, we're just going to check it out." They didn't know that it was tied to Kojima. They didn't know it was tied to Silent Hills. So it was interesting to see it take off. But then once all that information came out, then it became like this can't miss event.
And it's beloved
So-
to this day.
Right.
And I wonder if Death Stranding should have gone that route. Like, weird murmurings, all of a sudden Death Stranding, people would like freak out, you know? Whereas instead, Kojima was using his social capital as the advertising campaign, sort of.
Right.
And I mean, I don't befault them for that either. You know, it's like one way or the other. It's a cool way to do it, but like, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think the framing on this is really interesting because if you take the argument of like, hey, this is only getting a pass because it's Kojima, like people are pulling their punches because it's Kojima. It's interesting to think about it the other way, where it's like,
It couldn't exist with.
right, it's like if you are Kojima and you are putting this game together and you are using this technology and you are using this budget, you could make the safest thing imaginable.
Yeah.
You could make a tactical espionage game and make it very straightforward and simple. And so like this game is insane. It is insane that it exists.
I thought that so many times.
And it's like there are things that happen. There are words that people say. There are moments that happen. There are boss mechanics where I'm just like, I cannot believe what the fuck is going on.
I didn't understand 3/4 of the game.
And like, I don't think being weird for the sake of being weird is necessarily valuable, but I think with the social stuff, with the way that it structures the game, there is something there that comes together.
Yeah.
It's a shame a lot of the rest of the game doesn't come together, but there is something really valuable and distinct and interesting there that does have some amount of depth and that I had a response to.
Well, and also, like, I respect their team because it seems like they understood the limitations of what they were capable of doing. And you know what I mean? It seems like they set themselves a goal and were okay with making this game the way they made this game. And the reason, the evidence I have for that is we got the game a month early. And they were like, yeah, this will be pretty much the experience. Like, the game's done. It's in a good spot. There won't be, like, a big patch. We just think it's good now. And, like, that almost never happens. Like, we almost never get a game that early, let alone a game that early that doesn't need a bunch of bug fixes, that doesn't come with a 3-page thing of, like, here's what's broken. This game came to us finished.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Right.
I didn't have any technical problems at all with a game that's heavily network dependent
Right.
a month before the game came out.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It very much feels like this is exactly the game that they want to make, and that
I
was the
respect
thing.
that.
That was the thing. That was the sensation that was hard to shake about MGS5, where it was like, you didn't quite get to go all the way, did you?
Yeah, compromised.
Right. Where that I certainly don't feel that way about Death Stranding. I think Death Stranding will be incredibly divisive.
Yeah.
But I feel like they got to make and present it exactly the way that they wanted.
And like, for me, I agree with you 100%. Like, the fact that this game exists at all, and the fact that this game is what it is, and that they took this weird chance, like, they didn't make a game trying to please everyone.
Right.
They made a game that's bold and weird and sometimes bad and sometimes incredible. And that's really meaningful stuff.
Yeah.
That's daring and cool and interesting. And yeah, like, it's almost better for things to stumble sometimes.
Right.
Because that means you're aiming for something hard to hit.
Right.
You know? And yeah, so like the fact that this game exists at all is just wonderful.
Super
So
flawed,
great.
but I love it.
Yeah. Like, I can't hate this game. I actually really like this game personally, but like, I think that anyone who does hate this game, like, wants to, you know?
I don't agree with that. I really think you can play Death Stranding.
I think there'll be people who don't enjoy this game, and I think
Right.
that's 100% valid. But if
Yeah.
you're like mad at Death Stranding for existing, I think you want to be. Right?
I don't know. I don't think it is right for me to say the way that you feel about something
Sure.
like a video game.
Sure.
Like, you know, I'm not gonna, I don't know.
I mean, console exclusives are always going to be
Yeah.
targeted
Divisive. Yeah,
more
yeah,
than
yeah.
other games.
I guess
Yeah,
all
I mean,
I'm
I'm not-
saying
That's-
is
that's the only
Like,
thing
I'm super not interested
Yeah.
in
No,
fucking
console
console
wars.
wars.
No.
Yeah,
No,
not
I
at
don't.
all. I'm
No,
just saying,
but-
like, it's a net gain for the human race that this game exists.
I agree.
Like,
It's a-
that's all I'm saying.
It's a fun game to talk about, and I'm actually really curious to see what people think about it. And this was a thought I had thinking about Death Stranding and seeing people stream it, and that feeling really weird to me, where I was like, and I could be completely wrong here, but I feel like Death Stranding is not a game that acclimates to streaming culture very well.
Yeah, no.
And that I don't think I would want to stream.
Very
my
meditative
playthrough.
game. Very, very, despite being about bonds, like
Right.
a game I would want to play in silence and think about.
Right. And like, I love. I mean, we stream all the time, and I love watching streams. I watch streams all the time, but I do sometimes. I think about like the side effects of those things, right? Where you remember that time where everybody was trying to force multiplayer into their game.
Yeah.
Like I don't think every game should be like the most streamable thing. I don't think that's healthy either. And so, I don't think if you watch a stream of Death Stranding, like it's not gonna be necessarily a fun stream. And that's okay. I don't necessarily think that makes it an invalid game.
Yeah. Also, it's weird because I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, I mean, I have no idea if they're going to do DLC or what, but I had a weird moment where I was like, I wonder if I'll ever play Death Stranding again. Like, will I ever jump
Feels
back
like
in?
a Kubrick movie to me, where I'm just like, maybe like 20 years from
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Maybe next decade I'll play it. Come back to this.
Like it feels like a distant memory.
I do just kind of want to pop in and see how people are building and interacting with each other, for sure. But it's not something where it's like I could see myself sinking a ton more time into it.
Well, and I wonder how long like ladders and whatever you leave will stay in a game if you're not playing it anymore. Like, will you get instanced into other people's worlds with your ladders or whatever? Or if you're like absent from the game for 2 weeks, does everything you put down get time-falled out? You know?
The exact specifics for how many people you're playing with, like what is your pool and how quickly things degrade, I don't know. But those are just systems in place to make it manageable.
I super look forward to, I don't know who will do this video, like Digital Foundry or whoever. Like, I want to watch YouTube videos about the tech behind this game. Like, I want to know how the social stuff works. Like, how big is the pool of instanced
at the same
individuals
time,
at the same time, I don't.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I
love that I
you.
don't know how this thing works, and it just does.
I've definitely had those feelings as well, those desires to be like, okay, how is this working? This is like very opaque, and I like you're just kind of like logged in or logged out. It feels like it's very, but at the same time, I think it adds to the illusion of like, hey, this person just showed up. Like I didn't know exactly how Journey worked, right? And it was very sparse, right? I think on purpose to kind of make it feel more realistic in the sense that like, oh, I just stumbled upon this.
Well, and like we were playing obviously with a smaller player base than there will be now. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that will change the feeling and experience of this game.
Sure.
Or if it just gives you that amount of people's stuff. Because like I definitely saw the same people's stuff popping up throughout my entire playthrough. And I don't know if that's because they're in my region.
Well, I wonder if that is also influenced by it's like, oh, hey, you engaged with this person,
so
you
we'll
like this person's
show them
stuff,
to you more.
So,
Yeah. But it's also funny because there was another player and I who must think in similar ways because like they put a thing. We were basically like completing each other's projects. It felt like, but logically, I know that the game was probably only showing me 50% of what they built. Because logically, they would have done the same thing I was doing, you know? And so it's just, oh man, it's so wild, the tech of this game.
I like to imagine that Kojima is just in a dark room and he's monitoring every single Death Stranding player, and he's just doing it manually where it's like, you can play with him.
You get this.
He
literally has like his body hooked up with wires and he's just like pulling on people's strands. And
Yeah.
Cool game.
If you hate this game, it's valid. I didn't want to say that it's invalid to hate this game. That's not what I meant.
Just in 2019 to feel as fresh and original as it did for me is so cool. Like in a world now dominated by franchises and sequels.
Yeah.
You know, a brand new IP that just felt unlike anything really I'd played. It's cool.
It's so good that I'm so happy about this game being so weird and unbalanced and uneven in quality.
Yeah.
Like, even though it is all those things, I'm thrilled that this game is around.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's hard because $60 is a lot of money and people are strapped for time and they have a lot going on. But it's like, it's also, I think, one of those things where it's like, hey, if you have the opportunity, which may be hard to come by, I totally understand. Like, it's kind of an interesting thing to work through, and I don't know. Like you said, Huber, I'm really glad that it's there. I'm really glad that it's there. And it's also nice because were this like other games that we get? Like sometimes it's like, hey, you got this game and then the embargo is in 3 days.
Right.
Like, I'm glad that it wasn't like that, where it's like, hey, you got this game and you have, I don't know, like a month
Yeah.
to play through
like,
it.
yeah, 3.5 weeks or
I got to talk to you guys about it. It was like, oh, that was
Well, that's
that was
actually
awesome.
That's actually what I was gonna say. Like my biggest advice for this game, like I'm sure there are gonna be countless like tips for getting started in Death Stranding
Yeah.
videos. My biggest advice for this game is take your time.
Right, and
Don't
Tips.
feel rushed. Play
I
this when
don't want-
when you're not rushed.
there are
Totally.
so many games and that I think like looking at those tip videos or whatever like may totally help you and it
Yeah.
makes sense that they're there. But yeah, I was seeing those too and I was like, wait, no, like you
Don't watch those videos.
Yeah,
because the whole the joy of the biggest joy of this game is
discovery.
figuring out what the hell you're supposed to be doing half the
And-
time.
and don't be like, I got to get to the end. I got to get to the end.
Right,
Like
right. That's the poison of this game. Is
I
like,
would.
If
yeah.
you're trying to rush through Death Stranding, you're not gonna have as nice of a time probably. Because there were times where I felt rushed because like, we had videos and stuff we have to make about it, and I wanted to finish it before I cut the review. And like that stressed me out. I was like, oh, I gotta finish Death Stranding. It started like sometimes feeling like a chore. But now that I'm finished with it, I'm glad I, finished it.
I mean, I don't want to say that you can't ever be like, okay, I'm ready to move on with the story. I just think it's a game where take at least some time at some point throughout the game to
Take a knee.
play around with it or take a knee.
Yeah.
Persona
or,
5. Take your
yeah,
time.
Take your
Yeah.
time. Take your time. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure like there were times where I wanted to move on with the
Yeah.
story. Like
There were definitely times where I like wound up
you'll
like
feel different things at different times.
where you like got somewhere that was really hard to get to, and then you're like, oh, I
gotta
have to go back.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta go back.
You're like, no. But then you do because you're just like, God. Maybe a new Leroux song will play.
Hey, we spent the first roughly spent the first hour talking about Death Stranding.
Figure that out.
That's
how it would
what I
go.
figured it would be. Yeah.
That's a game.
That's a video game for sure.
The opening throws, like the first hour, just is so overwhelming. I'm just like, so much stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but man,
But in
sometimes
such a beautiful
sometimes
way.
I like when a game is willing to be overwhelming,
Yep.
which is a sentiment we will return to later in this podcast. So the Demons of the Frame Trap realm,
Oh.
once again, do not have a forbidden word.
Oh.
They want to form a connection. And they're like, it's so hard to form a connection when you can't shake hands. And their way of communicating to us is they want to know when we think some games that maybe not even are announced, or if they are announced, don't have release dates, when do we think they're going to come out? And I don't want you to think too hard about this. Just want to create a small discussion and your gut reaction.
Okay.
When do you think Street Fighter 6 will come out?
Whoa.
2021.
2022 holiday.
This is hard because I feel like there are two impulses fighting here, trying to be realistic and also just really wanting Street Fighter 6. I'm going to say end of 2021.
Cool.
But it will be announced next year.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay. Diablo 4.
2020.
You think 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah.
End of the year.
hopefully.
Holiday.
I
Yeah.
do not think so, based on what they came out
Or
and
like
said.
March 2021.
Yeah. Or November 2020 or March 2021.
Yeah. Or they're going to aim for holiday 2020 and then it'll get delayed until holiday 2023.
I think like
wait.
2022 is even very possible.
It's been so long already though.
Yeah, well,
It's Blizzard.
yeah.
Whatever.
I'm going to say 2022.
Woof.
I'm going to say end of
That seems
2020.
really
I'm going to
far.
say end of 2021.
Yeah.
That feels more possible.
Yep.
Metroid Prime 4.
Well, they went back to the drawing board like beginning of this year, right?
It's 2021 holiday.
Yeah.
I don't know why I want to be more optimistic about Metroid Prime 4 and say end of 2020, but that doesn't seem realistic.
I think that'll be Zelda 2. That'll be Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
2.
it doesn't seem realistic.
It doesn't seem real.
Does
game.
summer 2021 sound plausible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Summer, you said?
Summer 2021.
Remember, we're in a pre-Game Awards time right now.
True.
We are.
True. Everything could change.
Yeah, everything can change like that. Keely snaps his fingers.
Yeah, Doug Bowser repels
Boom.
out of the ceiling on a rope and just has Metroid. But yeah. Yeah. Holiday 2020 at the earliest, but probably 2021.
Breath of the Wild 2 is holiday 2020, right?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. I think so.
I think out of any of these, yeah, I agree with you. I
Yes.
feel the most confident about that.
Yeah,
Holiday
yeah,
2020.
Streets of Rage 4, March 2020.
Has that not been
That's in like
announced?
5
Correct.
months.
No date.
Really?
Yeah.
That's shocking to me. Ghostwire Tokyo.
Oh, wow.
Ugh.
Jeez. I could see that 2020.
I think this is
Halloween
this is like
2020?
this is like one of the hardest ones.
I could see it.
We've kind of
One
seen
trailer.
nothing.
Yeah.
I think early 2021. Not around Halloween, unfortunately.
Really?
So you're going to say spring 2021?
Yeah.
But like
I think that's
Evil
like a
Within.
March.
How long did Evil Within 2 take? Because that was like fairly quick, wasn't it?
Took
2 years?
3 years. I
3.
think.
Oh.
Yeah. Or 2. I just forget. 2 or 3 years.
I thought it was quicker. I thought it was like 2, but I have a bad memory.
I do too.
I think 3 years, but 2 because there was so much DLC. Technically.
I feel like you can sense Tango Gameworks, so whatever you land on.
Yeah, probably whatever.
Take your
Hubert
word for
says.
it. But yeah, it was just interesting thinking about like, hey, when will these things exist?
Some heavy hitters with no release dates,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, and Street Fighter 6 hasn't even been announced.
Yeah.
so
Is that the end of the list?
that's the end of the list.
Because there's one I thought would be on there.
What's that?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh.
When
yeah.
the hell is that game coming out?
PS5 launch.
Yeah,
That's a holiday.
Holiday 2020?
2020.
I
Yeah.
don't. I
That's
guess
a
I'm not
PS5 launch title, dude.
maybe
It has to be.
I think fall of next year. I do.
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So you think launch at like October PS4 and then like November or September PS4 and then November PS5?
I could see
Cross.
Ghost of Tsushima being like a swan song.
Yeah.
like, very end of the life game.
Interesting.
I wonder what's more lucrative, like being a Swan Song game or being a hot launch title?
Swan Song.
Probably
dude.
Swan Song.
So
'cause
many
way
PS4s.
more people. Yeah, way more people have that console. Yeah.
Think about how many people are going to get like their first PS4 this month or
Yeah.
like for
Yeah.
Christmas or something. So
Yeah,
I think you do get a lot of that. as
Truly,
well.
truly. Especially the deals, Black Friday deals and everything.
Probably down to like what, 200 this
The
holiday
standard?
maybe? Probably, yeah.
PS4
like
standard,
$200.
They'll do a bundle probably, some kind of.
Our rampant speculation is brought to you by these wonderful sponsors. Our first sponsor is Greg the Dark Knight Kettering. Thank you, Greg. Next, we've got Zoteg. Do you play Final Fantasy XIV? Are you on the Crystal Data Center?
Not anymore.
Search at Zoteg, that is XOTIG, on Twitter for a link to an EZA Crystal Discord server. Thank you, Zoteg. Our next person is Accounts Payable, who would like to give us a free shout-out. What would we like to shout out today?
Oh,
Shout out to Disco Elysium.
yo.
We're talking about Disco Elysium on the
Yo.
show.
We're about to talk about
We're
this.
going
Get
to
ready.
Yeah, okay. We're love hyping up a segment on this own episode. Yep, great. Thank you, Accounts Payable. Next, we have Gift of Heaven. Gift of Heaven is a rad and righteous RPG created by O.M. Hawkstelter for your 3DS. In this apocalyptic fable, World Emperor Makil Vis finds himself powerless to conquer the evil inherent in the Empire itself. In his unrelenting quest for utopia, he conspires with the last archaic vampire to combine Earth with heaven in an unholy alchemy intended to end the world as we know it. At the same time, the dread wizard Killboss seeks to destroy all life by summoning the Black Hole Sun. One way or another, the end is coming, and so is Gift of Heaven when you download the prologue for free by searching the 3DS eShop for the RPG Maker player and searching on the RPG Maker player for the nickname OM Hawk. Check out the Gift of Heaven YouTube channel to watch the prologue launch trailer, a weird promotional short film, and a spooky Act 1 trailer. And let OM know what you think in his thread on the Easy Allies forums. Thank you, OM Hochstelter and Gift of Heaven. Next, we have Daventry Vaporworks. Shout out.
Shout out.
Big shout out to our mega sponsor, ViewSonic. Have you ever wondered what a gaming monitor from Tron might look like? How about the most Star Trek monitor ever? The new XG27 series from ViewSonic Elite has finally dropped and looks fantastic. Featuring innovative nano IPS technology, a 1 millisecond response time, and 165 Hz refresh rate, your monitor of the future has finally arrived. Visit viewsonic.com/elite to learn more. And for giveaways and updates, follow at ViewSonic Gaming on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you so much, ViewSonic. I think it's time to talk about Disco Elysium.
Nice. Can I grab a drink really quick? I'll be back in 5 seconds.
Yes, you can.
5 seconds.
Give me one.
What do you want?
LaCroix.
Go.
Are you going to cut this part out or is it going to stay in?
We're keeping it in. Disco Elysium, me baby.
All right. Oh, okay. Here we go. I suppose I'm the only one who's played it.
Yeah, you
so
are. You're
far.
the only one who played it.
Yeah.
I really want to play it.
Someone,
My gaming habits are weird.
someone on Twitter was like, "You got to play Disco Elysium," you know, and then immediately after that happened, Justin Spear from Game Trailers
Yeah.
messaged me directly on Twitter and was like, "You really do have to play Disco Elysium," and I was like, "Wow, okay, if Justin likes it, I got to check this thing out."
It's the Justin push is a good push.
Yeah, it's a good push, especially because it's very sparing that Justin Spear will push something at you.
Right. He won't push it unless he really believes it. Right?
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people use the phrase like, or they're like, "This is the most Ian thing ever." Like, this is very you, you know.
Yeah.
Which is flattering and it's great, but usually wrong. And right on the money with Disco Elysium so far. I'm about 6 or 7 hours in, and man, I really like this game. It made me nervous, this game, a little bit, because it deals with political stuff and all that kind of stuff. And one worries, especially in like indie spaces and with games I've never heard of the developer and stuff, like is this team on the up and up? Like, is this game like secretly pushing some kind of weird agenda that I don't know about? And I looked into it and I don't think it is. I think it's just a game, which is great. But man, it's so well written.
So what is it? Let's
Okay,
like a
yeah,
top-down-
let's go back
Yeah.
to, well, top down, yeah. It's top down. It's
Sure.
isometric. Think old Fallout or Arcanum or I don't know, Planescape Torment. I don't know.
Infinity Engine games.
Yeah. Divinity Original Sin 2, that kind of stuff. It looks kind of like that, except it has this really cool kind of, not watercolor, but kind of like interesting, freaky kind of art style.
The art looks
Painterly.
Yeah.
I love it. It looks really, really nice. Some stuff like this in this style are really unsettling. Like this one skirts that somehow, though. It's unsettling intentionally sometimes, but yeah. But then it is, the word I keep using to describe Disco Elysium is literary. It feels like I'm reading like a Nabokov novel, which from me is high praise, because I think Vladimir Nabokov is a genius and like was, I guess.
See, when you say literary, I can think like, oh, I can identify like the positive aspects of that, but it also gives me pause where it's like I could also see that being a slog. Like sometimes things can be good but too dense.
I agree, and I think that this game will for sure not be for everybody. And it's funny because normally I get really bogged out and tired of games that have a lot of reading in them. You know, like older, some of the Infinity Engine games, I'm just like, all right, like you're talking too much, like speed it up. This one, I don't know, I'm like ravenous. I want to read.
I want to go
all of
home
it.
right now and continue the journey.
So so you're playing it too.
Yeah,
Have
I
you
played
started it?
90 minutes.
Really?
Yep.
You started
That's why I
Disco
gave it a
Elysium?
shout out. Yeah, for you.
Cooey!
Because I knew.
I didn't know. I thought I was the only one.
Well, you were hyping it up, and then that very same day, GameSpot gave it a 10.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Saw the 10.
And then Ian is just like, goaty. Like, I really hope more allies play, like, end of
Yeah.
the year time. So
And it really is catching me by surprise.
what was your signature skill? Because in the beginning is really cool.
Conceptualization.
Okay. I want empathy.
Yeah, oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's
that
something.
makes sense.
Yeah, that fits. Empathy is my like B tier skill. Like,
Nice.
Yeah, I'm good at that. I'm like not physically adept at all.
Nice.
In fact, my first, I played I started the game and I was like 5-5-1-1 on the like. So it's like brain skills,
okay.
like
I think I went
emotional
well-rounded.
skills, physical skills, and like endurance or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got killed. I died immediately trying to pull a tie off a ceiling fan. I had a heart attack and died. So then I was like, okay, 4-4-2-2. Like,
Hilarious.
the game killed me in the first couple of minutes, reaching for a ceiling fan tie.
But I love that. I love
it's amazing.
moments like that in RPGs where it's like, oh, that feels unique to exactly the choices that I.
And like the way that this game does skills is unlike anything I've played because, most games will have checks.
Yeah.
RPGs like this have like skill checks, which is, this game also has, and we're all used to that. And it's like, okay, you have to check your persuasion skill against their check, and if you get it, you get it.
Is your number high enough?
Right. And this game has that all the time, constantly, except the skills are kind of nebulous and sort of weird, and often
I'm confused.
they like emerge as like almost like multiple personalities or like voices in your head. Like my main skill was conceptualization, which means you like see art in everything. That's like what the description of conceptualization is. And I'm like, when I'm starting the game, I'm like, I don't know what that'll mean for gameplay, but now I get conceptualization as like this voice in my head that's just saying like, describing like a blood splatter as, like a Rorschach painting, like a painting or something, and it's like, encyclopedia, I don't know how high your encyclopedia skill is, but it's really useful because it'll just pop up a lot with like random facts about things you're looking at.
Happens.
And it's awesome. And it's like
love
they
that.
all and they all have like little different personalities kind of.
Yeah. So is that kind of what it comes down to, what keeps it engaging with the conversations that you're having and the way that you're learning about the world? Is it feels like it's kind of going through a filter that you decide, and it's a weird filter that is unique and different than what you would maybe expect from this kind of a game. Like it's not just like, hey, it's not just intelligence. It's taking something and kind of abstracting it a little bit more.
Yeah, abstraction is the right word for this game. Like everything is veiled in sort of a kind of fog, which I mean, is very appropriate given that the story starts with you on with like the most apocalyptic hangover of all time. And you're uncovering yourself as much as you're uncovering this case, and it's funny. I saw one headline. I didn't read it because I'm trying not to read anything about this game while I'm playing it. Afterwards I'm going to devour all that stuff, but the people who like it think it, GameSpot gave it a 10. And they're like, this is the greatest thing. You can be this detective and you can kind of do it your way. But then I saw one headline that was like, it has the illusion of choice, but you're not really doing anything. And I thought that was such an interesting, weird take because one of the things I love about this game so far is I really feel, honestly, it feels like the old Blade Runner game.
Yeah.
Where I really feel like I have agency, and the things I notice or don't notice are unlocking crazy new paths for me to take. There was this one situation I was in where it seemed like a binary choice to get around this musclehead guy to try to get through this thing. And one of the choices was like adopting his like weird racist mentality just to get on his good side so that he would let you past him. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. But like, it seemed like my only choice was doing that or fighting him. And then I was like, there's got to be something else. So I like looked around and I found another way through. And that was just because I was looking around, you know? And there's a whole bunch of stuff that I could have just completely missed. And I think the game would have moved forward without me ever seeing that. And I love that. I respect that.
Yeah, I having not played the game myself, somebody saying the illusion of choice is interesting because I do think that can be a problem, but I also think it comes down to how well the illusion is crafted, right? Where, like, okay, like, you might end up at a similar point, but if the game does a good job of making me feel like it's different, that can be equally effective. Like, it's not. Yeah. I don't necessarily think it has to be so literal all the time. I think some of it comes down to the presentation. Presenting it well is a skill.
Yes.
Like Man of Medan is probably really not super.
Right.
There's not a
right.
lot of deviations.
String
but
of pearls or whatever they
but
say.
it really feels like you have a lot of control over it. You know.
Well, I mean, that's the funny thing about the illusion of choice as a concept in video gaming, especially narrative video gaming, because it's like the amount of writing the people who made this game did is finite.
Yeah.
So, like, they're going to have to corral you somehow. So every narrative video game is going to have an illusion of choice because you can only do the things they created for you to do. You don't have free will, you have options. You know, and it's like it's not like Minecraft where you can just do whatever you want, you know, and it's so funny to have that complaint about a game like this. But I so far have, and I haven't beaten it yet. I'm 6-7 hours, maybe 8 hours in, which I gather from how long to beat. Because Kyle, I think, asked me, and I looked it up, which I normally don't do, but it was like 20, 25, 27 hours, which feels perfect for this game. You know, like that's the amount of time I think is good. But like, I feel like I'm having a unique journey in my own impact so far.
I've played 90 minutes in, and I feel the same way, 100%.
Yeah. And like,
100%.
my friend Jack is playing it, and he got around that guy in a completely different way than I did.
Yeah.
And the way that this game handles failed checks too is really funny because sometimes even when you have a 79% chance of getting something, you'll fail, and then the game, like, a character will be like, even if, like, there was a thing I was trying to do and it was like my third time failing it, and then this guy was just like flabbergasted. He was just like, yeah, I thought that it would work this time. I really don't know what to tell you. Like, this is getting depressing, you know? It's just, it's funny, you know?
It's interesting because I feel like a lot of what you're saying about Disco Elysium echoes our conversation that we had about Outer Worlds on the last episode. And that's something that I really like about Outer Worlds. But you were like, it's harder for me to enjoy Outer Worlds based on what I've experienced with Disco Elysium. And so that's really interesting. Because one of the things that I think Outer Worlds does a pretty decent job of so far is, like, there'll be times where it's like, oh, I clearly can't, my skill isn't high enough to talk my way out of this. Like, that option is gone from me. But I think what makes a game with decisions like that good is your remaining options are still interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, you end up going down another path and you're like, oh, that was still, like, thoughtful and cool. I don't feel like I missed out on something. I just feel like because of who I am, I took a different path. And I would hope Disco Elysium feels kind of the same way, where it's like, I can't do this, but what I can do is awesome and limited at the same time.
I love when every skill feels valuable in a game.
Yeah.
Like all the stats.
Right. And so when you get that, when you get those points, you're like, I want everything.
Yeah.
I can't have everything. This is awesome.
Totally. And like clothes affect stats a
effect,
little bit. So like
Yeah.
I put some clothes on and it like either gave me like a +1 or like some things gave me -1 on one thing and +1 on another.
And there are a few things, like, I could see you saying, like, a possible thing that could be read as a detractor in Disco Elysium is there are things that they call white checks, which are like a skill check that you can unlock again if you fail. And usually the way to unlock it again is by putting a skill point into the skill that it is, which, is in one way forcing your hand to do that thing. But for me, it's kind of an interesting story thing. It's a narrative thing where it's like you're in a situation where your character has to adapt in this way to deal with this situation, which to me, the skill point being applied to unlock that check again is sort of just like you are forced to adapt to this in this way, unless you have found some other way around it, which I have also done.
Yeah.
I haven't unlocked a check and I've found another way to do a thing before. So it's like not always, but yeah. But the thing with Outer Wilds that was interesting is
Outer Worlds.
I do that every time. Outer Worlds. Because I've played a few hours of that too, and I played Disco Elysium first, and then I was playing Outer Wild, like, only for like 90 minutes, and I was playing Outer Worlds, and I just found myself being like, oh man, I kind of would rather be playing Disco Elysium right now. And
Also,
that's
the music in that first bar,
Disco
Ian,
Elysium? Yeah, it's chill.
I was like, dude, I bet Ian loves this
But
soundtrack.
it was funny because then the day after that, I saw like on Kotaku or something where it was like Disco Elysium ruined the Outer Worlds for me. Like someone wrote that article, you know?
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny. I was like, oh yeah, I did have that experience too. The thing with Outer Worlds for me is like, I really like it. I think it's really, really well made, but it feels like a game I've played before in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But also, Outer Worlds being first person, like maybe the systems might be a little more advanced in Disco Elysium, but like I'm still like clicking here to like get to a place, The movement so far I'm not 100% used to it. It feels a little cumbersome,
like an older game,
Yeah.
for sure, in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Outer
But
Worlds
it's just
has that like first person shooting vibe, I guess.
it's a weird comparison because they're similar in a lot of ways and couldn't be more different in many ways.
Yeah, your perspective of like, hey, I think this game is better for me and I like it more. Like I could totally see that happening with Disco Elysium, but having only played Outer Worlds, the opinion that I kind of have is just like, why not both?
Why not both?
It's like
No,
it's
right.
awesome that both of these well-written RPGs are getting the buzz that they're getting.
And like I plan on finishing Disco Elysium and then going back and playing more Outer Worlds. It's just like right now my interest is so piqued by Disco Elysium that it like overshadows Outer Worlds completely.
Totally.
But yeah, I do intend to go back.
And I love that kind of happened to you with this game where it was like a recommendation and you're like, okay, cool, I checked it out, and then you just got swept up in it. You just got absorbed by it. And those are the experiences that you have to hold on to.
Like I haven't stopped thinking about it since I
yeah,
started
I think
playing.
that's really, really cool.
And you'll love it.
Yeah, it's really
it's a guarantee.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee you'll love it.
I'm anxious to hear what all the other allies think of it. Like I think that it'll be divisive amongst us, which
There's a
Really?
0% chance Ben doesn't love it.
I think you'll really like it. Like especially given your love for Divinity and Path of Exile.
Yeah.
I think that you'll really enjoy this game. It's different from those in a lot of really fun, cool ways.
I'm sure it's so funny to say this because I am like in a way number one guilty of this because I do this on this show all the time and on streams all the time and in privately with you guys all the time. But there's I think I'll really like Disco Elysium and I really want to play it and it seems fascinating and cool and it's saying all the right things. But there's also like this pressure where it's like,
Totally.
oh man, like, okay, like sometimes it's nice to just kind of like be removed from that and just not it doesn't even enter your brain and you're just taking a thing on its own away from the noise. Like sometimes it's nice to like wait a few months after the conversation has died down a little bit and then sneak in and play it and then you're just like, I just want to play it on my own.
I feel like right now though it's still in that sneaking phase because it's exclusive to PC. It is a very specific genre that a lot of people just don't care for or like won't engage. They'll acknowledge it but won't engage with it. I still feel like right now, even with kind of the buzz around it, it still feels like the ship is still at the station with Disco Elysium, which is exciting.
It's sort of, I agree with both of you, but like I often find that I don't like hearing positive things about a movie or a game before I play or see it because then it colors my impressions, right?
Right.
And it's like it's I wish I could recommend a thing without my recommendation just implicitly being praise,
Sure.
I guess what the remedy for that, I guess, is just to start recommending bad stuff and good stuff, so that no one knows where you're coming from.
I think
now you're talking.
I think just what I'm trying to articulate is it's like sometimes it's nice to just like put something on your radar and not have it feel like a to-do list thing.
Yeah.
Because like if it's especially something that like you want to enjoy or that you want to impact you or you want to have like the patience to like properly dig into and give a chance, like I don't think that pressure necessarily helps.
Well, and I mean, first world problems, like
exactly.
I love
exactly. That's a fair point.
Well, no, I mean, not your thing, but like I love our job to pieces. I'm thankful every day that we get to do this.
Right.
But a weird side effect of our job is that pressure where it's like we've all got to play all of the potential GOTY things before January because we have to all be informed to make decisions about them, Yeah. So it's like I've got to play Outer Worlds. I've got to finish Luigi's Mansion. I've got to, play this and that and the other thing. And it's like many times often that's a blessing, it's great.
Yeah.
But like if I'm not enjoying something, but everyone's like, oh yeah, but the ending is incredible, you know. Then it's like, oh well, okay, like, you know.
Gotta see it through.
Yeah.
That actually is a perfect transition for talking about Path of Exile, but I don't want to cut you off from Disco Elysium because it sounds awesome.
Weirdly, I think almost I've spoken too much. I think the less you know about Disco Elysium, kind of the better.
The less
Jump in now. The ship is at the station docked, waiting for people to hop in.
Yeah.
No
but it's
pressure.
It's like we'll be back around. Like it's a friendly station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be back around.
We'll come back around. We'll pick you up in a
'Cause
couple months if you want.
Console versions probably will come out
Who
next
knows,
year
man?
at
Who
some
knows?
point. Like that almost
You-
always happens.
I think you pretty much only use the mouse, I think. So it could work on Switch, maybe. I don't know.
So I have been playing a lot of Path of Exile. I don't know what happened. I think so. To kind of try to make sense of this, and members of the Easy Allies community brought up Path of Exile, I think, a few months ago, and I had dabbled with Path of Exile before. I got a Ranger up to 17, I think, or something. So I'd played it before. I had some experience with Path of Exile. I'd covered some Path of Exile stuff in the past, but not really dove in headfirst into it. And I was like, I always wanted to. These people just when they get into it, they get obsessed with it, and it seems really cool. And I really enjoy Diablo, and maybe the Diablo 4 stuff was like the final push. But I just was like, you know what? I'm feeling it. It's free. Boot it up.
Yeah.
And I went down this path that
Of Exile?
was fierce and vicious and awesome. And it was kind of exactly what you were describing with Disco Elysium, where I felt like kind of out of step with the hype train.
Yeah.
And because of that, it just felt like it got to wow me in the most organic way, where it was just like I know thousands of people know the strengths of this game, but I feel like I'm kind of discovering this magic on my own, and it's really, really cool. And I have so much stuff to play. I need to play more Luigi's Mansion 3. I need to play more Outer Worlds. I've got to play Disco Elysium. But it was really refreshing to just kind of find something, latch onto it, and be like, no, I know a lot of stuff is great right now, but I want to play this.
It's such a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's such a good feeling, man. And
It is.
and I'm glad you're embracing it because life just keeps on going, you know? Just
Right.
keeps on flying by. And I enjoyed a lot of my time with Fortnite.
Right.
And that's a very similar thing where played it, talked about it at work, but then didn't really need to do anything more with it, but I just would play with my friends and just get so sucked in, and it's like I should probably be playing some GOTY contenders or some other things, but no, I'm just gonna enjoy a couple drops and
Right.
just enjoy this moment.
Couple
you
more
know?
drops.
It's nice to have, I think, once in a while to have those things in your life that are driven entirely by love and interest, you know? And that is what Path of Exile became. So to contextualize this, I'm in Act 4 of Path of Exile. I've got a level 42 Marauder in
many
Standard League. I wish it was in Blight League, but there's 10 acts.
10
yeah,
acts, okay.
there's 10 acts. I wish I was in Blight League, but I'm in Standard League.
What's the
wait, what
difference?
does that mean?
I don't know anything.
Okay,
but
Wait, are you
yeah,
Alliance?
Here we go.
No.
Oh, okay.
So-
I was like, wait a minute, man. Whoa.
The thing that I have to be careful about with Path of Exile is it's a game where you could get into the weeds immediately.
Quickly.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, and that's part of the reason I love it. But there's so much to talk about and break down, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave people stranded. I want to
Death Stranding?
try to explain this in a way that makes sense. So roughly every 18 weeks, every 3 months or so, they have a new league. And it's very similar kind of to seasons in Diablo.
Yeah.
And they'll have a mechanic for that league. They'll be like, we're putting this thing in the game, and it will be this new thing that makes playing the game different. It'll spice it up a little bit. So the Blight League, the most current league, what it is it's a tower defense game. And so you meet this character, and she's kind of cool because she sings this song, and you can hear the song, and then you approach her, and she's like, "Hey, we gotta stop this blight. I have this machine to purify the blight. You have to protect this machine." And then what you do is there are all of these blight strands that kind of scatter about. And even so, I guess to make sense of this, I've played a little bit of Blight League on the Xbox with a witch, but my primary character and where I'm spending the vast majority of my time is this Marauder in Standard League. But I have done a little bit of Blight League on Xbox because I wanted to see how it felt on console on a controller. Because I tried it a little tiny brief bit on Xbox before that, and I was like, this seems rough. Playing it again with a low-level witch and trying out this Blight League stuff, it seems much better than when I first tried it. It seems improved. But anyway, this Blight mechanic, so it's a tower defense, and you have these nodes, and you can build towers there. And it's like, you have ice to slow them down. You can build like fire towers, and you just have to protect the center part. So if tower defense is like fun for you, you can do it. You can get loot from completing these little things, and it's just a way to kind of spice up the game. But what's really cool about Path of Exile, and even playing in Standard League, and I'm not getting that Blight stuff, is I'm getting a bunch of stuff from the previous leagues that are doing because they're updating it all the time. They have thrown a stupid amount of stuff into this game in a really cool way where it's like you're kind of playing it, and every so often you just get something, and it was like, this was a big new feature at some point. And like a good example of this is this Beastmaster, where you'll go and he's just kind of this awesome hunter guy, and he's like, hey man, let's go capture some beasts. And he'll just like appear out of nowhere, and you're going and you'll see a beast, and you'll be like, all right, let's go catch like 4 of these. And you go and you catch them, and then you go to his place and you go into the arena and you fight these monsters that you captured, and it can be pretty challenging. And then these monsters, if you fight them like in a certain way, you'll get these recipes, and you can get like currency and stuff, and it's very valuable. But again, I could talk about a bunch of the stuff that they added. I could go on and on about that, but I think I kind of want to break it down to like the essential components of what makes Path of Exile so cool and why I love it so much is how much control I feel like I have over my character and how constantly I'm having to make interesting decisions. So Path of Exile is very infamous for its massive passive skill tree, which I'm sure you've seen, the thing with a bunch of nodes.
I played a few hours of this game, actually.
Yeah, and that is really intimidating, and I think it turns a lot of people off, and I think this is definitely a game where I could see somebody playing it and being like, whoa, this is too much. I get that, but it's also the kind of game where I feel like it is designed in such a way where you will make mistakes and it is okay, and you will learn by doing in a really cool way. And so I just was like, I already started this Marauder. He's like level 7 or whatever. I'll just continue him. I just want to try this game out. And then it was like, what's so cool about Path of Exile is the way skills and gear combine. So unlike other RPGs where you level up and as you get higher in level, you will get different skills, or because you picked a certain class, you get skills. That's not how it works here. Every skill, every active thing that you're doing in the game comes from a gem. And these gems will be quest rewards. They'll drop from monsters. You'll get them from loot. You'll get them from like chests and stuff every so often. And you will actually slot it into your gear, but it will have to match the color of the gem. So there's the blue, green, and red, okay? And so it's like, I want to do this really cool, like my core ability right now is Molten Strike. And I hit people with my axe and these balls of fire come off. And it's like, if I want to use Molten Strike, I need to have a slot available where I can use that. And what gets really cool is you will get gems. Like I love like necromancy in games. I just think it's fucking awesome.
Hell yeah.
And I got a gem where it was summon skeletons. And I was like, I need it. I need it. I don't need it. Like, I don't need it to do well.
Yeah.
But I want to summon skeletons. And I'm playing this big, brutish, two-handed axe guy. In a lot of other games, that couldn't even be a thought. And it was like, okay, well, I don't have the intelligence that I need to summon these skeletons. So what I need to do is I need to change my gear around to get the intelligence and change my slots around so I can slot it in, but I can do it. And so
Ben, that's my favorite build of all time.
Yeah.
I could only do it in Oblivion. It's the only game I was able to have an axe and a skeleton companion.
Oh, yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
And the choices that I'm making wouldn't mean anything if they weren't difficult. Where there are times where I'm like, oh man, I kind of have to like look at the gear, and like it doesn't necessarily seem like this is a better choice. It just seems like a completely different path that will change the way that you play. What's that?
Of Exile?
Yeah, I bet. Sorry, I keep doing that.
I'm just being an idiot.
And it's, I have like watched videos to understand certain mechanics and to understand the currency and to get a handle on like trading and stuff, but I haven't looked at a build guide. And I'm really glad that I made that decision because it's been this nice process of this is what I want and then this is what I need right now. And I'm learning like, oh, okay, this is really important. I should go over here on the tree. And it's something that is also really fun about fighting games, where you're just like, this is overwhelming and I'm going to learn it slowly and I'm going to learn it bit by bit. But there is so much to learn, and it's so rewarding to do so that it's really fun to engage with. Yeah, I don't know, man. I can't say enough good things about it. It's hard not just like gushing and like going into super nerdy detail.
I really enjoy hearing you talk about it because you are smitten.
I am.
With the Exile.
I'm totally smitten with it. The other thing that I really like is I think aesthetically it does a pretty good job, and thematically it does a pretty good job. And so like I'm talking a lot about numbers and stats and all that stuff, and I think that is there, but I don't think numbers and stats and all that stuff don't work unless you have a good aesthetic. Unless you have something that just feels like kind of good on a more basic level. And what I mean by that is like it all comes down to presentation. Like Disco Elysium, I don't think if you were into the aesthetic, like the choices and the decisions would mean as much. Like that's an important component. And in Path of Exile, for instance, you get an ascendancy later on in the game. And what that is it's like an advanced class. And once you get the ascendancy, you can choose 3 different options. And it's like, hey, like you can kind of do whatever you want, but because you picked this class at the beginning of the game, you can get bonuses for doing that. Where it's like, oh, hey, you're a marauder. Do you want to be a berserker? Do you want to take more damage and do more damage and just be a psychopath? Do you want to be a chieftain who emphasizes fire, or do you just want to be this like immovable tank that you can just like absorb damage? And so you can make those decisions, and those decisions are fun. It's fun having an identity like that. But the way that you do it is you have to do these trials of ascendancy. And what the trials are at first is they focus on one particular trap where they're like, okay, go through this maze of spiked floors or go through these whirling saws, because these trials, you will have to go through what is called the labyrinth. And it's this really long, dense thing where they put all the traps together.
How long is the labyrinth?
It's hard to say because I had a pretty weird experience with the labyrinth.
Sounds awesome.
We'll get there. Yeah, so, and the thing about the labyrinth is if you die in the labyrinth any point,
you can never do it again.
No, you cannot. Not that you can never do it again.
That would be so brutal.
I mean,
you're locked out of this entire part of the progression system.
Nothing you can never do it again, but you have to redo it. You have to redo
Start
it
over. Yeah.
Very good still.
Yeah.
Good.
And what's cool is there's this boss that you'll encounter, and you have to fight him multiple times throughout. Where he'll like come out of the ground. You have to do a fight with them, and be like, oh, and then he'll like go back down.
Can you do labyrinths as a group, or is this a solo thing?
I've just been playing entirely solo, but you can play with other people. I would assume that you could totally do the labyrinth with other people. Just because I've been playing solo, I can't confirm, but I would assume so. And yes, you can play online with other people. Yeah, that's really, really cool. My experience with it is I was chatting with somebody online, and I thought I was in a safe space in the labyrinth, and I came back in and it was like, you have died. And I was like, no, and I was at the end of the labyrinth.
Oh, no.
And then I said to the person, I was like, all right, man, I need to focus on this. Talk to you later. And I did the labyrinth again, and then my internet went out.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know, man. And I gave it one more try, and thankfully everything worked out. And I got
How long
got
did
my
it take the
ascendancy.
last time?
It went very quick, because but there's a frustrating end to this. Something that I didn't know. The last try, I think it was only taking 20 minutes. Like it was kind of the process of at the beginning, I was like being very thorough and opening everything and killing everything. And then by the third time, I was like, no, I just got to get to the end. So I was beelining it. But at the end, because you get these keys, and I was like, what are these keys for? This seems weird. Like, there are silver keys that you can use on doors, but there are other keys you can get. And I'm like, I don't know what these keys are for. Got into the final room, and there were all of these chests. And I was like, whoa, dude. And I opened 2 of the chests, and I was like, the gear that I'm getting from these chests is insane. and it's like, oh, you're out of keys, you can't open it anymore. I was like, no, I didn't know,
'Cause you
I
didn't
know.
explore as
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Oh,
so,
Can you do it again, or once you've done it, you've done it?
yeah, so there's a, I think you can do like the normal labyrinth again, but the way, I haven't tried to do it again, but I think you can do it again. The way that the way that ascendancy works is you have this big ascendancy tree. You only get 2 points. So I'm playing on normal right now. You only get 2 points. When you play on the higher difficulties, you get a couple more points and then a couple more points. And so it's like cool progression on higher difficulties as well.
Neat.
Which is really neat. But I love it a lot. I want to keep playing it. It's been distracting in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, it's really, really cool. They're having a big, they're having Exile Con next week.
That's right. Yeah.
Where they're going to talk about 3.9 and their big 4.0 thing that they're doing. And
Yeah,
so,
this seems like a game that's been around for 10 years and is going to be around for another 10 years. Is that okay? Do we need a 2, or is this foundation still kicking?
So I feel like that question is a very good one. It's coming at a kind of an awkward time because the language that they're using for 4.0 is like this is huge. So maybe it will be the kind of transformative update that
Visual upgrade and stuff, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I mean
Find out at
this game has
Exile Con.
been around for 6-7 years, something like
Yeah.
that, and like I think it is cool that like I'm diving into it really like in 2019 and having like a blast. The fact that I'm not like, oh, it's pretty cool. I wish I would have gotten into it sooner. I don't feel that way at all. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy I'm getting into it. And look at all of the stuff that they've added, and it's awesome, and it's adding so much to the game. The one thing that I would recommend, and I think this is like maybe a topic you could debate about, is one of the pieces of advice that I read that I took that was very useful is installing a loot filter. You just get so much loot, and a lot of it is not good, that having this filter really has improved my experience. And that's interesting. So if I do recommend.
What does this loot filter do?
It's like a mod, like an add-on,
Yeah, so it's
like an OG World of Warcraft.
it's this download. It's this download that you can do, and you can put it in your game, and you can
This is
tweak the
next
settings into
level,
it,
Ben.
and you can. I'm just using like the basic settings for the loot filter right now, but you can tweak it to be like softer or stricter depending on how you want. And
So
Wow.
So it blocks out loot you don't need?
Or like certain rarities.
Yeah, so it's like evaluating the loot where it's like, hey, this is completely worthless, or like, and it will give you different labels where it's like, hey, I think this is really good. I'm drawing special attention to this. And it will label things where it's like, oh, okay, this border, like I know this is a scroll of wisdom. And so it just makes it easier to identify things. It helps you avoid a lot of garbage. And at no point am I like, oh, I feel like I'm missing out on anything. It feels like it is only enhancing my experience, not detracting from it. So
Cool.
Reminds me of old WoW
Yeah.
add-ons for sure.
And the other thing that I want to say, and maybe like just to like pique your interest, because I know like you really like Diablo, both of you really like Diablo. I think part of the fun of that is just kind of like getting into that zen-like state where you're just like killing
Yeah.
monsters and having
Yeah.
fun. Like this has that too. Like it's fun to just go and kill hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things.
Killing monsters.
Yeah, I feel like I got through. It starts on a ship, right?
No, you as an exile are on a ship. Your ship crashes.
Yeah.
And you wake up on the shore.
And then you have to fight little squid.
Yep,
little
yep,
crab
yep.
things.
I
Yep.
got past that stuff onto
fight-
the
fight
shore and
Hillock.
then kind of stopped around there.
Yeah.
And so I like just did the tutorial, I think.
I mean, I've done 3 acts so far, and in my opinion, the acts are getting like better and more visually interesting as well.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I was playing a witch. I think I had a
Yeah.
witch.
Yeah. Cool. The little that I've played of which has been very fun. The other thing that I want to say about it, and it sounds like an advertisement, but it's like really weird, is it is like ultra free. Like all of this stuff, all of these updates that I'm talking about,
Ultra-free.
all of these characters, you don't have to pay for any of that.
How's it monetized?
So it's monetized
remember.
through microtransactions, and the way that these microtransactions take place is it's cosmetic stuff. So you can get like like essentially like layered armor in Monster Hunter World. It's like that, where it's like this armor doesn't have any statistical bonus, but it will make you look different.
Okay.
So it's that. It doesn't have an effect on gameplay. But you can also buy like premium tabs for your stash, where it's like, hey, if you buy these tabs for your stash, like you can name them or and things like that. So you can buy additional stash tabs. I'm trying to think of something else, but yeah, it's mostly that. It's mostly cosmetic.
Yeah, just
stuff.
Cosmetic or quality of life stuff.
But it created an interesting relationship with me, and I'm not exactly sure how to unpack this yet, because like the skins are pretty damn expensive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so that seems to be kind of the trade-off, where it's like
Just don't buy any.
you can completely ignore this, but if you do, like, it's going to be more money.
It's like Fortnite. Fortnite skins are so much.
They're insane.
$20.
Right.
Like Heroes of the Storm was so expensive.
But I was like, I kind of reached this decision where I was like, I like the look of this thing. It's really expensive. It's $60 to get this thing that I wanted.
Whoa.
Whoa.
That is really, when you said really expensive, I was
Right.
like, okay, $20.
Whoa.
But it was weird.
$60.
It was weird because it was like, okay, I have been having such a good time, and this has already given me so many good
Yeah.
hours that like
You're just
I
buying
kind
a
of
game.
want, like it was like, I want to look cool and I want this thing for what it is, but then it was also like, I just kind of want to give it to you as a good job, like, and that felt good in a weird way, which I'm sure is playing into the psychology of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was it. I guess from my end of it, it was easier than other games where it's like you're really making me, you're really poking at that wallet.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was poking. It felt like I kind of came to it on my own terms.
Well, that's good.
So, but yeah, I don't know.
There have definitely been free-to-play games or games that we've gotten for free where then I'm like, I enjoy this enough to have bought it,
Right.
so I'll pay for the thing,
Right. That's kind of where I came from with it. I think it would feel weirder if it was like $60 and then I spent another $60 on
You're
just
right.
this thing.
Yeah.
But it feels like I kind of just bought the game in a way. I don't know. We got a lot more to talk about.
Uh-oh.
And by a lot more, I mean Luigi's Mansion 3.
Ooh. It's cute. What a cute game.
That's it? It's just cute?
It's great. It's good.
What do you like about it?
I like when Luigi goes. It just looks incredible. This game is
Right.
beautiful.
Right.
And it's fun. The
Yeah.
vacuum controls are confusing and weird. That's like the only downside to this game.
You and I have both run into it where just like there are times where you're turning left and right and things get like weirdly mixed up
Yeah.
or slow or
It's like
clunky in a
tank
way.
controls for the vacuum only. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, definitely there have been many times where I'm like wanting to go left and up and it goes right and down. And I'm just like, why? What just happened? Or what,
Right. It kind of falls into this weird category of complaint for me where it's like, yes, this is definitely existing and it's something that I'm dealing with, but it's also like not preventing me from enjoying the game or really causing me to struggle. And so
Right.
it's weird. It's just like kind of this odd annoyance that isn't super consequential.
Well, I think it's because the game isn't high stakes enough. Like, the enemies aren't so hard
Right.
that a little mix-up is going to, like, ruin your day.
Right.
It's not like trying to be a Souls-like with bad controls where it's just like, okay, I'm never playing you. It's just like, hey, yeah, I went right for a second, but now I've got that ghost again and it's fine. Like, it made no difference.
Yeah, it kind of falls into like I'm not finished with the game yet, but it kind of falls into this category where it's an easy game, but it's not an uninteresting game.
I don't want it to be harder.
Right,
Yeah.
like the boss fights have like pretty nice mechanics to them. Like it's not necessarily hard to figure out, but you're having a good time. And I think the puzzles kind of fall into that same category, except for that barber one kind of tripped me up a little bit. But anyway, like for the most part, it's I'm having those moments where it's like, oh, I have to stop and think about this, but I'm not every step is like this grueling, like, oh, I gotta solve this and I don't know what's going on. And so it has a really good flow to it.
And it's weird to play a game where there's more secret than game.
There is a lot of
It feels like
secret.
there are so many secrets in this game that there's like the percentage of game is like 55% secrets, which I love. It's so fun, and it just dumps so much money on you. that you don't really have much to spend on, but like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just the right vibes. This game.
Yeah, I didn't
Cozy.
I didn't
Yeah,
think the shop
cozy,
was all that
cozy.
exciting, but at the same time, just like seeing the dollar bills rain down or like the sound of getting the gold bars,
Yeah.
it's like kind of fun
Yeah.
just to pick it up.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool. And like if you think about it, you're just kind of going from like floor to floor, getting ghosts, fighting a boss, and like it could be a very repetitious
Yeah.
structure, but I think just the visual variety in the floors themselves and the presentation, which you were talking about, like the personalities of the ghosts themselves, and yeah, it is like delightful and extremely polished, and it's a gorgeous game.
Well, and like I was expecting it before I got to the piano boss to kind of just be the same kind of rinse repeat sort of a thing. Every floor you just, fight a boss and the mechanics change slightly, but they're basically the same. But then I was like, oh, like the piano boss and the maid that swallows the briefcase or whatever, like I'm like, oh, okay, they're actually going to change this stuff up more than I thought they were. I mean, I'm only on the 4th floor. You get them out of order, but I just got 4th floor. Floor 4.
Floor 4.
That was hard to say.
It is hard.
I saw someone with a license plate on a BMW that was 44, but they spelled 40 Fourty.
44.
Yeah, which is incorrect. And I was like, that was weird. But yeah, they shake it up and it's good. This game is cute. It's funny. I'm loving it. I don't feel like a ravenous need to play it, probably because of Disco Elysium. But I want
got
to
your
keep,
fix.
Yeah, I want to keep playing Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah, that's interesting because like with both, like I want to keep playing Outer Worlds, I want to keep playing Luigi's Mansion 3, but I like Path of Exile is kind of that game where it's like, oh, I'm fiending for it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Also, soapbox, Halloween games should come out before
know.
Halloween, not on Halloween.
was just
Society
gonna-
has moved on to Thanksgiving now and Christmas, for God's sake.
Yeah.
The creepy vibes period is pre-Halloween,
Yeah.
not post-Halloween.
Like Fortnite Halloween event after Halloween is just depressing.
Yeah, it's like, man, I wish Halloween were still coming
Yeah.
instead of happened.
Yeah. I almost want to wait a year till next Halloween to play Luigi's Mansion 3. That's kind of just because I have so much going on right now. So many things to play. So much to do.
Yeah,
The vibes will be enhanced.
man, I get you. I totally get you.
Or we need a second Halloween
Yeah. That too.
in the year.
the game is just so damn
It's
good,
really
though.
good.
I'm going to play it.
You gotta
probably
play it for
before,
goaties.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy because I think you can just take like one room in Luigi's Mansion 3, and it's ridiculous how much you can interact with. Where you're like, oh, okay, like here's the thing that you do in this room, right? So you have your basic obvious thing. But then it's the kind of game where you're like, oh, I wonder if I can interact with this. And you kind of get, like you were talking about with Disco Elysium, where it was like, I wonder if I can do this. Like Luigi's Mansion 3 kind of has the same sensation
Yeah.
where like, I wonder if I can do this. And then you do it, and then it goes like even further. And then it's like, oh, I went down this pipe and now I'm underneath the floorboards and there's a whole thing under here. It's like, it's kind of fascinating because you repeatedly have respect for the designers where you're like, it's crazy that you thought of that you put all of this together, and you just kind of let the player unbox it in a
Well,
really
and
cool way.
this is the first Luigi's Mansion game that I've owned. I've played a little bit at friends' houses or on streams with us, but like I've never gone through one before. And so I don't know if the old games did this too, but the amount of physics objects in a room in this game was really surprising to me. I'm like, oh, this is a game on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
And it's like Control, like everything in this room moves.
Right. Yeah, and having played both past Luigi's Mansion games, they definitely kind of had the spirit of this where it's like, hey, there's secrets to find and there are things to interact with, but this is like a whole nother
Yeah.
level of
And it's like
interactivity.
actually doing the physics. It's like you vacuum up this thing and it's just getting vacuumed the way it would. It's not like you were pointed this way and so we activated that switch and the thing
Right.
just comes at you.
Just thinking about like the stage and all the stuff that we found there and how you can interact with Toad.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty wild and not necessarily the most obvious thing. Like you kind of had to put two and two together
Yeah.
to make that stuff happen.
Well, that's the thing is, the secrets feel continuously rewarding to uncover. Like they're not repeating themselves too often
Yeah.
to the extent where I'm like, oh yeah, hey, fun. And like some of them are so innocuous. Like, oh, there was a piggy bank hidden in the wall right there. That's fun. Like,
Right.
not really consequential, but I like, oh, that's cool.
Oh man,
yeah.
and the billiards room with the sword.
Yeah. Oh, and then
Yeah.
we were like, I wonder if this will happen, and then it does, and you're just
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, what a cute game.
Something that we haven't talked about that I think does bear mention is Luigi.
Yeah.
And so there's you can play it by yourself, and then the way that it works is like you're like, oh, okay, I summon Luigi, and then I'm going to take control of Luigi, and so you can kind of treat them like different pieces where it's like, okay, I want Luigi to go over here, I'm going to move him, and I'm going to plant him here, and I want Luigi here, and then you do something with them. And Luigi can get through different things, so like he can like go through bars or through a vent or something. But you can also play co-op,
Yeah.
and that's really fun.
It was fun.
I actually found co-op to be like pretty advantageous because two people trying to interact with stuff, I feel like you stumble across things a little bit more easily.
Sure.
But also there are times where I'm like trying to figure out something and like I'm not thinking about Luigi because he isn't out. And then
Yeah.
you have that moment, that aha moment where it's like, oh, right, I need Luigi. I think it is you forget that you're controlling you have the ability to control two things sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think with co-op, it happens a little bit more naturally.
Plus, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like Luigi like bumping into each other, or like
Oh, Luigi's hilarious.
going through a door and you just cease to exist and drop the key that we
Right.
need. And it was just really funny. I don't know. Yeah.
Also, just using the plunger to attach it onto things and then sucking the rope of the plunger and just like whipping things around is really fun.
It's a satisfying game. Yeah, it feels good to play it
Mm-hmm.
once you sort of get used to or just accept that the vacuum won't always do what you want it to
Sure.
do. Yeah.
Probably wait till my Christmas tree's up, then I'll pop it in.
Weirdly, I think I was gonna say that like you
Yeah.
missed Halloween vibes, but it has like cozy
See you in
holiday
De- see you
break
in
vibes.
December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to
It's-
be on a couch to
Gotta
play
be on a
this.
couch with either a lit pumpkin or a twinkling Christmas tree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
demand it.
Man, there's a lot of stuff to like catch up on, and there's a lot of things that I want to play, which is like, you know, a lot on its own. But then it's also like, got that Pokemon review coming. That's gonna
boy.
be big,
I
and
keep
then
forgetting Pokemon is
and then it's like, you know, I've got a wedding coming up, and that's gonna be its own whirlwind of life. So
yeah.
yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm trying to treat things loose.
Take them as they come.
Shenmue 3 is like 11 days away randomly.
Yeah,
Just
you got your Shenmue
go,
3 coming?
What?
It's a big
Yeah.
month. It's a
But
big couple of
that's
months.
like you parting the sea for, right? Like this will be your life, and you'll make everything count. Talk to me a little bit about Afterparty, Michael Huber.
Afterparty is awesome. Getting the criticism out of the way at the top. Played it on PlayStation 4. A lot of stuttering. A lot of technical problems on
That's
PS4.
always a bummer.
Yeah. Nothing like brutal, but like annoying. You know? Just frequent.
It takes you out of it.
Yeah.
And
like,
this seems like a place that you want to be in.
yeah, every like minute or two or three or four, like
Sure.
there's some little
Yeah.
you know, and that hurts the flow. That aside, this is from the creators of Oxenfree. And this game, the premise is two best friends go to hell, and to get out, they need to beat Satan in a drinking contest. And this game is all about mood, it's all about the writing, it's all about the characters and the interactions, and it is a delight. It is a delight to exist in.
Okay, so just like looking from what we've seen in trailers and stuff, it does
Yeah.
look very visually enticing. But I guess the question is like, what is it like moment to moment? Like, are you pretty much just talking to people? Is drinking like its own game?
Yeah, so you can get drinks at bars, and
Okay.
then when you get a drink, it unlocks additional dialogue options. There's like a ton of different drinks, and they have different categories. Like liquid courage is one, and that'll make you a little more courageous. If I had to criticize another thing, it's that I never felt compelled to. I never felt like I ever needed a specific type of drink in a specific encounter.
So you're just kind of choosing whatever.
Yeah.
So you've played through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never. It's really short. You can get through this in like 4 or 5 hours tops. And yeah, I never I wish that system had gone maybe a step further.
Yeah.
Mechanically, because this is a game you're not going to get stuck on. Like Oxenfree, I got stuck on a couple parts. This is just good momentum, so there's no frustration. You're not getting stuck on things. It's just you keep progressing in the game, which is nice.
The concept of like, hey, we've got to beat Satan in a drinking game, right?
Yeah.
Is really cool.
Yeah.
But it also seems like something that could be resolved very quickly. So how does it evolve throughout the 4 to 5 hours?
There you get in little adventures along the way. No spoilers, like you meet Satan pretty early on, and you have to do some things before you are allowed to partake in the drinking contest with him. So that kind of sets you on the path to go through the game and interact with different people and different stuff.
How are the main characters?
Great.
Okay.
Super great. Really smooth dialogue, like really just all that is really smooth. Like
Is it funny?
Yeah, I laughed. I laughed quite a bit. Some characters better than others, some real standout characters, but overall it was just really chill to play this game. Like, this is a really cool take on hell, and there's a lot of funny stuff. So it's just, visually and music and everything, I really recommend Afterparty for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
How much is Afterparty? Do you know?
I think it's $20.
$20.
20 to 30 I paid for it. 20, 30, I believe. Right?
Have you played any Afterparty, Ian?
Yeah.
Not yet. No.
Okay. Is that one that you're looking at, or?
I should probably play it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
But it's all pretty much all story. There's a lot of story.
Sure. It's hard to
character narrative thing.
get into specifically.
Yeah.
It's hard because there are a couple of smaller games that like we've definitely shouted out on this podcast, but like Sayonara Wild Hearts is another one where I really, really liked it, but it's like I also want to ruin nothing for you because it's like an hour long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard because like those games don't necessarily hold less weight than these big things that we're talking about. But yeah, sometimes they do feel a little bit more difficult to talk about because of the space that they're occupying, but it's a really interesting space. And yeah.
It's just really nice to find a short game too.
Right.
Every game doesn't need to be so long.
Absolutely.
I played Sayonara Wild Hearts actually here with my friends Jason, Pam, and Chris, and we were just in the streaming stage, not streaming, just there because for whatever reason I was here and then they were in the area, so we all just hung out here, and we played through the entirety of Sayonara Wild Hearts, just handing it off to each other. And I think it was like the perfect way to play that game. It was like so much fun.
God,
Yeah.
that soundtrack.
It's kind of like going on a
really good,
like an amusement park ride together for the first time. I feel like, that's awesome.
like watching a Marvel movie.
Marvel cinematic
It's like a theme
universe.
park ride. That's not a movie.
I played it by myself.
Me too. I played in darkness.
I ride rides
At
by
1 in the morning
myself.
with headphones.
All right, Hubert,
Yes.
your late night adventures.
Yes.
Have you ever stumbled upon the HOTTAKE?
Oh God.
Hubert, I think you're gonna have some stuff to say about this one.
Okay.
I want to talk about bots.
Bots.
I want to talk about bots. Robots. They're
Bots.
taking over the world. Skynet is here.
Skynet.
They've taken our jobs.
Your life is ending. No.
Skynet.
I want to talk
No
about...
fate, but what we make. Sorry.
I want to talk about... Specifically, I want to talk about bots in Fortnite. We can also talk about Mario Kart World Tour. That's another example.
hit the mic with my
But
hand.
in Fortnite Chapter 2...
Yeah.
Epic Games has introduced bots, and kind of a quick and dirty summary is when you're playing, you will encounter not real players that are obviously going to be easier to kill. And this is this is a statement from Epic Games. In the next season, we're adding bots to Fortnite. They will behave similarly to normal players and will help provide a better path for players to grow in skill. Bots will work in conjunction with the new matchmaking system, and as your skill improves, you'll face fewer bots. Bots will not be present in competitive playlists. I think that's important. This is another system that we will continue to update and iterate. So, yeah, I think optimistically the idea of this is it's like, hey man, there are a ton of competitive games out there. Sometimes it can feel really intimidating, especially when a game has been out for a long time. You jump in and it's all killers. It's something we talk about, joke about all the time when we play games.
All killers.
And so, like,
All killers.
this is a way to make that ramp a little bit easier, a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, you could also say, hey, it takes away the satisfaction.
Sure.
It feels deceitful. It's, people maybe think they're killing real people, but they're not. Is that weird? And so, yeah, I think it's kind of a fascinating thing, and I want to get the panel's take on it.
I don't know. I think deceitful is a very extreme take if one were to find this deceitful. I think this idea is smart because, again, this is a new beginning for Fortnite. It's Fortnite 2. And it is, if you go in this game and you're a brand new player, like, it's very intimidating. There's a lot going on, and I have gotten back into Fortnite for the season, and I'm on both sides of the fence here because when I drop and there's a character kind of just like floating around doing nothing and like trying to come up the stairs, but they're just running into the stairs, not doing anything.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, okay, well, that was a bot, Like, they say, oh, they'll behave similarly to players, and it's, from my experience, no, it's a bot.
Yeah.
Like, you pretty much know. And that is kind of discouraging because when you kill someone, you go, oh, that was a bot. And,
I
like,
want to go into the game and start acting like a bot, like
well,
walking into a wall.
people have started doing that. Yeah. There is that, like, meta now where people are, like, pretending to be
And
a
then
bot.
you're just
and
like,
then, yeah.
Yeah. Except I would walk into the wall and get killed before I knew anyone else was there.
That's why you don't take any chances.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it does kind of take it away where I'm like, oh, I killed a bot, or like if I don't even know, I'm just gonna now assume I killed a bot, and then I'm like, anytime I get killed, I'm like, did I just get killed by a bot? Am I bad, or
Right.
So
It introduces doubt in a weird way.
It does, and I wish I hope, because Fortnite changes so much so constantly, I hope maybe in the future you can opt out of bots.
That's what I was going to say. Make it an option.
You make it a training league or something where the first like 50 games you play or something, or however many is a bot league, or
50 seems like a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, when people play Fortnite, they're just
Yeah.
Just from a conceptual level, I think the reason that I like this is because it's like they're like, hey, you will face fewer bots as you get better, and so it just seems like a way to kind of get people started.
Totally.
Which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do think, especially online competitive games, could do a better job where it's like, I also think there's value in sort of baptism by fire, and I think that can be good, but I sort of get the philosophy of this. Mm-hmm. You can also look at it really cynically, and it's like, well, if we make people feel good easily, they'll be more inclined to spend money. So that's.
But the promise of them taking bots away is what really I like about it. Is like, okay, this is not a permanent thing. You're going to face bots in the beginning, and then they go away.
Right.
It's just that this is all the Wild West. I can't see anything that's going on behind the scenes. I don't know how many bots are in this match. I don't know. I played a week ago with my friend. We had a day. We're like, man, let's just play Fortnite for like a couple hours.
Right.
We ended up winning like 6 games, like the best we'd ever done, because we'd been trying to play with each other for like months.
Yeah.
Like, it's time, dude. Let's have a day.
We won post bot.
Yeah. So we won like 6 or 7 games, which is the best we've ever done. And I at the end of it, I was like, dude, are we still playing bots? Like, are there bots still in this game? Like, we've won 7 times. Like, you'd think they'd all be gone, and like we still think we kept running into them. So I think just the confusion of it all is very weird.
So when I say I don't understand, I mean you can definitely assume reasons here, but that's the thing that is a little weird, right? It's just like just label them bots.
Yeah.
Just label them bots.
Call it Killbot 5000.
Right. There was one, the algorithm, Ian, it felt like they put in a ton of words in the thing, and it just picked 2. One of them killed a player called Tree Smasher. And it's like, that's got to be a bot, right? They just put like
toast.
Smash and like tree, just put a bunch of action words in there. Like,
Noun, action word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question. it said competitive modes don't have it, or
Right.
So is there like quick play and ranked now?
No,
Bots
no.
will not be present in competitive playlists.
What does that mean?
So there's a tab in Fortnite. You can only like normal play is normal play, like but then they have tournaments and stuff like events.
Okay.
So
okay.
I think that's referring to the events that you can
Okay, because at
participate in.
first
Yeah.
I was like, I thought they added, because I haven't
Yeah.
played since 2, and I thought maybe they added they had like a quick play and a ranked
That's
or something.
what I want. Yeah, that's what I hope they do.
Because if it's bots in quick play and not in ranked, I'm like, okay, fine,
Cool,
that's
yeah.
whatever.
totally, 100%.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll add like an allow bots toggle in the options screen or something. I mean, it'll make matchmaking a little more complicated, but like if you personally just don't want bots, I guess that can be a choice.
Yeah.
And like you could just go in and lose if you're not good enough or whatever. Like
Yeah, I mean, optimistically,
like
right?
I would just get destroyed without the bots,
This is something where they will maybe allow more control, and they will keep changing it. And I mean, that's something to Fortnite's credit, right? Is
Yeah.
how rapidly it changes.
They listen and they seem to adapt. Yeah.
But I guess I'm
think.
just kind of interested in like the mental effect that it's having right now, because you saying
Yeah, it
like
makes
you
me
won.
feel bad.
Yeah, you saying
Personally.
you won 6 games.
Yeah.
It's like I can imagine like maybe those first 2 games felt awesome, and then it was like maybe
didn't feel
felt,
as good.
Yeah, like maybe to the point where you felt like you were wasting your time almost. I don't know.
It didn't feel as good. Kills didn't feel as good. Like dying kind of felt worse. It was a weird sensation for sure.
Did it hurt your interest in playing Fortnite?
No, because I assumed after a couple wins the bots would be phased out or there would be way fewer of them. I haven't played since that day, so I cannot confirm. I'm hoping they're gone, but
I wonder how good you have to be before you
Yeah,
get. Like,
yeah.
does Ninja
That was-
see bots at all?
That was
like,
actually
is there still
something,
1 or 2 bots in there, or is it like gone by the
Yeah.
time you've won like 10 or 12 games?
yeah.
That was something that was weird. Is in looking at the story, and I might have just missed something. Admittedly, I might have just missed something, but I didn't find a quick answer to what does it mean when you grow in skill. There'll be fewer of them. Like you don't know the specifics.
Also,
of
it says fewer, not gone,
Yeah.
right? You'll
Right.
encounter fewer. It's not like once you're good, they'll go away.
As your skill improves, you'll face fewer bots.
Right,
Yeah,
and that
so it's just
fewer
very-
still technically means that there could be 1 or 2 in
Sure.
there.
Very ambiguous.
Which maybe also maybe they mentioned this, but maybe they wanted to make matchmaking faster by like filling in a gap of like 3 players with bots,
Sure.
instead of waiting another 20 seconds or whatever.
totally.
I mean, I don't know.
Because sometimes, like back in the day, like matches would start with like 91,
Yeah,
92
not
players,
full.
not 100
Yeah.
players. Yeah.
So now maybe if they were going to start with 92, they just put 8 in
Fill
there,
in with bots. Yeah.
which is like fine, I guess, if they're chaff anyway. Like
I do kind of love you saying that it has developed its own metagame of people acting
Yeah.
like bots.
Yeah.
That
Super fun.
sounds fascinating. Like also maybe potentially super frustrating, but also kind of fascinating. And I guess where I ultimately fall on this is like I kind of respect the concept. Think maybe they could be clear about some things, and because like I don't want you to feel bad for
right.
like you don't want your wins to feel hollow. I mean that's kind of like the core appeal of battle royales, right? Is having that adrenaline-inducing moment when you finally win.
You're feeling
To
like
be-
you earned it.
To be
Yeah.
fair, there's never really a bot in the final showdown when it's like
one would assume.
because to get the victory, there's always that final showdown. Then we think there weren't bots. We don't even know.
But
We don't
that's
even
the
know.
thing. That's the thing. It's
So
like
I don't
the-
think a bot is building a giant structure.
right.
Like,
Do they build it all? The bots?
kind of like rudimentary. It's so
They're probably not great at it.
weird.
Well, that's the thing that I know it's not a perfect analog, but I'm thinking of like Foucault's Panopticon, where it's like a Panopticon, for those who don't know, is like in the easiest example is a prison where the guards are in the middle and every cell has a window that the guards can see you through, but you don't know when you're being watched.
Whoa.
America is a panopticon because you don't know if you're being surveilled
Whoa.
at any time, right? But it's the doubt that you can enforce a larger number of inmates with fewer wardens because all the inmates have to assume that they're being watched all the time because you never know when you're being watched, right? So this is sort of the opposite of that, where it's like it robs you of a little bit of that satisfaction because you have to assume that some of those kills were bots.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not a perfect analog, but it feels like sort of the same kind of thing. It's weird. Like the not knowing is
The
what's,
not knowing
what's
is
weird.
It's so weird.
I wonder if they all did say like Tree Smasher bot,
Yeah.
if you would be like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The knowing would
Yeah,
make
just kill the
you.
bot.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like cynically taking a cynical take on this. If they are crunching the numbers and they're like, oh, people are spending more money, more people are like lower level players are sticking around longer or something. If they do keep it as vague as possible and they just make the bots better or something, like I hope it doesn't go that way. I hope it's just because like I think this can be implemented well and have positive effects for the players in the game. And I hope it goes that way.
Totally, especially for the creative mode. If they can use bots or however that works, it feels like that's another avenue where bots could be a really good service.
I wonder how you test and scale the difficulty of bots in Fortnite.
Yeah.
And also, I wonder if all the bots are at the same skill level, or if, as your skill level improves and you're seeing fewer bots, if those fewer bots are better than the beginner bots.
Yeah,
I wonder if they have levels.
This will just evolve, and we will just have bot matches in Fortnite that we place bets on.
Yeah.
Using real money.
Respect it. Like when we played,
Oh my gosh.
Killer Queen Black, and we just spectated an all AI match. It was really weird. And then people were watching us stream us watching bots play each other, and it got really like theoretical.
I feel like there's no better time for them to have done this, though, and I hope that in the coming months it gets ironed out or changed or better.
I
'Cause
appreciate
it's new chapter and just a whole new world in Fortnite right now. So
How are you feeling about Chapter 2?
I
Sorry to
really,
interrupt you again.
I really
Oh,
like
sorry.
it. I really like it. It's leaning into its MMO vibes. So the map starts out all gray now. You fill it in when you discover places.
Oh, really?
Yeah, progression is XP based, which was terrible at launch. They're tweaking it, trying to get the payouts more. But like everything you do gives you XP, and you're leveling up. It just feels more like MMO-y.
Yeah. I appreciate what I was going to say is I just appreciate their willingness to shake things up. Like,
Yeah.
it would be very, very easy for Epic to just rest on their laurels and not change Fortnite for years.
It seems like nonstop shaking.
It
over
seems
at
like they're
Epic.
shaking it up nonstop, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You
There
know?
are some times when it goes into stable lulls
Yeah.
for
Right,
a couple months.
right.
Which it
but-
needs also,
yeah.
right? You can't be changing things constantly, or
But I feel like more often than not,
Yeah, they're just-
yeah, and it's not to completely change the topic, but that's a thing that I was trying to articulate about Blizzard on the podcast. Is sometimes it seems like it needs to feel that way more with Blizzard games than it does.
Blizzard needs to shake it up a little. I think.
Yeah,
Oh, and they added fishing, Ben. Yeah, they
that's
added
pretty cool.
fishing. And it's cool because when the
You
only
you
place
fish for loot?
you can fish, yeah, there's little whirlpools that you can fish in, like little spots all over the water. And when you fish, you wait for a bite and then you get it so you can get like really rare guns. But one of the best things is it's only from fishing is the slurp fish. And it gives you like 50 health, 50 shield. So it's like really good if you get that.
Oh.
So
The slurp
super
fish
cool.
is like it sounds nasty as hell.
Yeah.
it's like
is
this
it gross
purple
looking?
thing.
Dude, I got my slurp fish.
Fishing in video games is so interesting because
Love
it's like
it.
it's like this mainstay that's been around forever.
I love it.
But I would wager that like people love fishing in games that have never gone fishing or don't want to go fishing.
I've been like fishing a couple times, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Fishing is awesome.
I love
Yeah.
it. in real
The
life.
video
Video
game
game
fishing
fishing,
is
yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
It's like I definitely prefer video game fishing to real fishing.
Yeah.
I used to
yeah.
fish sometimes, but yeah.
What, it was a thing in like Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts fishing.
Yeah.
That was my fishing.
And like you
experience.
fish with
I
like
really
an uncle
hated
here and there in the day.
putting the worm on the hook.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I liked.
I liked lures.
Mm.
Like I liked using lures.
My grandpa was a fly fisherman.
Ah.
Got out there, stand in the water.
Abby's dad likes going ice fishing.
I've done that.
I've
Ice
never
fishing.
done it.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Then
And
you just
then-
like sit in the thing and
Yeah.
just drop it down, right?
Yeah.
Is that it?
It's bizarre.
That is.
But
weird.
I mean, I guess I see the appeal. You're out, you're hanging out, whatever. But the thing that always gets me is later in the season, growing up in Wisconsin where I did, like later in the season, lakes will start melting and you'll still see a 2x4 or a 4x4 out on the ice. And like there have been times where like the ice
seems
is so
scary.
the ice is so melted that they had to put boards from the land to the ice because there was open water, but they're still driving their truck out onto the ice. And it's just like, yo, guys, probably time to pack it in.
Scary,
The season
dude.
is ending, dude. Like, get your truck off the ice. Yeah. The Midwest is an interesting place.
Pack it in.
Pack it in, boys.
I think that ice fishing kind of sounds cool, but I also hate the cold. It seems like.
I fell through the ice one time.
Did you?
Whoa.
Just a leg. It.
Oh, dude, oh man.
I didn't
Sounds
go
intense.
under, yeah. But I was small enough I could have fallen probably.
I
through the
would've-
hole. I was like 9 or 10.
Oh my god, falling through the ice. That just. Ooh.
Also, we found
Horror
a
movie.
fish on the ice and then brought
Tried
it.
to slurp fish.
The slurp fish. We found a slurp fish on the ice, brought it back into the house and put it in warm water, and it came back to life for like 2 hours. Then I think we ate it. It died, you know.
The circle of life.
Circle of life. Ansawenya or whatever.
All right, we ready for some emails?
Emails.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Our first one is from Michael Gonzalez. He says,
Hello.
Hey there, allies. Mental health issues have been something you guys have discussed over the years with each other as well as with viewers. As someone who struggles with depression and anxiety, I was just wondering if there was a certain game or games that you found yourself really connecting with during rough moments in your life. Whether it was comfort from nostalgia or simply because the game reminded you of happier times. For me, I found myself really infatuated with the first Dark Souls and most recently Final Fantasy 15. Both games almost became medicinal at one point for me, and they really helped me pull through some dark times and also helped me discover new things about myself. To this day, I still pop those games in my console from time to time just to say hi to old friends and enemies I haven't seen in a while. Hope you guys have a good one. Love and respect.
Fortnite. Fortnite is so comfortable for me because I can play it alone or play with a buddy. And it's just got a really cozy feeling to it. I love just dropping on the outskirts and digging around and going in houses. And it's just so soothing and intense, but it's also not at all. It's so chill. It's not like, single player games. I personally have to be so focused, so invested in the story and the characters. Fortnite is just pure relaxation for me. I can zone out and just kind of go in autopilot. And
Yeah,
It's going.
it's interesting for me because like struggling with depression for most of my teenage years and into my 20s, sometimes I wanted comfort food, like a nice like Suikoden or Castlevania Symphony of the Night or whatever, where it's like cozy, chill vibes. But other times, I'm kind of glad you had Dark Souls in there because other times I wanted something darker that like felt like it's like, yeah, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Disco Elysium, I'm like, you get it. Like, So it's interesting. A movie example is like I would watch As Good as It Gets a lot when I was a kid because, like, I don't know, the nihilism of some of the characters appealed to me and I felt seen or something. I don't know. But, yeah, so it's weird. Like, sometimes a comfort food game can actually be a darker game
Yeah.
because you feel seen, I guess.
definitely. I'm
Dark
like that with
Souls is a good
movies.
example. Yeah, usually it's movies for me.
yeah.
The comforting thing that I would use was Futurama. But as far as games, like, yeah, just things that feel comfortable and like home to you, I guess. Yeah.
Dark Souls 1 is definitely one for me because at the time that I played it, I think it was just in a very down place, and I'm definitely somebody that struggled with depression, and especially at the time, Dark Souls 1, there would just be times where it was like beating me into the earth, and so the victories that I had in Dark Souls, I kind of felt like were also. They made me feel like, oh, like you can do it, man. Like it kind of helped, I think, add to that sense of perseverance. And that was really important to me. And that I think that's why I like forged such a connection. I mean, obviously it's a phenomenal game, of course, but that feeling of satisfaction, I think, had a rippling effect in my life. And on the opposite end of that, I don't play it anymore, but Hearthstone, thinking about Hearthstone, like my infatuation with it was like kind of at the ending days of GT, and a lot of things were like really intense and stressful, and not a lot of things make sense. And I think that's kind of why I like video games sometimes is there's a lot about the world that doesn't make sense to me and like seems very simple and super solvable, but is not being solved and in some cases getting worse. I hate that feeling. And so something I like about video games where it's like, I can figure out these stats. I can figure out what this meta is. And like, yeah, it might be frustrating, but at least I feel like some understanding and control over it. And so I think Hearthstone was a vehicle for that. But there's a lot of games that I think you can put in that have given me a similar sensation. So
I think what I like about Fortnite too is I love it so much, but I'm weirdly not invested in the brand at all.
For Fortnite?
Like the characters and the like brand that is Fortnite. I don't have that like Marvel obsession connection to it. So it's like I can enjoy this on just the most like basic, chill, no investment, no stakes level. You
it
know?
also
And I
means
really
that you
like
can
that.
like walk in and walk out without any guilt.
Exactly, and that's what I did. I took like the last 4 or 5 seasons off, and then now I'm dipping back in. And
Well, it's a testament to the gameplay because that's what you're after.
Yeah.
Like you don't care about all the trappings.
you think that's okay though to like love something that much, but also weirdly be disconnected from it?
I think that's beautiful.
It might mean you love it more.
Oh,
I think the way that a lot of
I like it.
it's a good question here because I think the way that a lot of media is structuring itself, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a good example, where it's like, hey, dude, watch all these movies; they're all connected.
Yes,
And like
we're talking about it right now. We got there.
That's cool because there's a payoff for that investment, right? And like I think that's neat that it exists, but like, man, I don't want all of that to exist.
Yeah.
That's something that I really miss about arcades is like I didn't get to play arcade games a lot, but when I did, it felt magical and awesome because of that scarcity. And it's like I would just go, I would fucking play Time Crisis 2,
Yeah.
and it would be dope. No, I wasn't committed to it. It wasn't a long-term relationship. I needed to look up Time Crisis 2 builds online. Just fucking played Time Crisis 2, and it was great.
Also, like when you're a kid and $6 is all the money you have,
Yeah,
you know, or
yeah.
like whatever your situation is, like
I got
playing
6 lives.
Yeah, going through X-Men or whatever, you're just like,
Yeah.
well, I can't play anymore because I'm out of money.
I think it is good to have like really lighthearted, fluffy things in your life like that sometimes.
Lighthearted and fluffy, dude. That's Fortnite.
Like when I was just this made me think of it. When I was a teenager, we'd go snowboarding every week, and when if it was too cold or we needed a break or whatever, we'd go in, and sometimes I would have a couple of bucks, and it was always a choice between. Like usually you would get like a drink or like a hot cocoa or a water or something, but then it was a choice between a pack of Skittles or San Francisco Rush. Or cruising, yeah, whatever.
San Francisco Rush, the Skittles of video games.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes your hands were too cold to open a Skittles, and then playing San Francisco Rush with like your wrists because you can't use your hands because they're so cold. Yeah, those were the days, man. Weird.
Next email comes in from Wesley. Hey, Ellis.
Wesley!
With the recent release of The Outer Worlds, it looks like Obsidian has a hit on their hands, at least critically. The game is currently sitting at an 86 on Metacritic with nearly universal positive reviews. A 9 out of 10 from Easy Allies Radio and Daniel Bloodworth, and a huge online buzz, which is still growing. This stands in stark contrast to Fallout 76, which was berated, I love that word, rated heavily over the last few weeks after rolling out their Fallout First subscription initiative. It's difficult not to compare the two franchises considering how closely The Outer Worlds likens to Bethesda Fallout formula, but that got me pondering what The Outer Worlds means in relation to another Bethesda title, Starfield. Starfield has been speculated to be Fallout in space for some time now, and while that prospect sounded exciting at the time, I can't help but wonder if The Outer Worlds has stolen Starfield's thunder before it even got out of the gate. The Outer Worlds is basically fulfilling that concept well in advance of Starfield and is doing it swimmingly with very few of the traps that generally come with Bethesda titles, bugs, lack of polish, etc. Considering the poor reputation that Bethesda has been building for themselves with their games from a gameplay and business standpoint, and looking at The Outer Worlds as a comparison, what does Starfield need to do to stand out and compete? Do you think that being a new IP from Bethesda Game Studios is enough to get Starfield to sell, or does it need to differentiate itself more somehow? Is the comparison even apt, and does it matter? Lastly, what does the panel want to see from Starfield when it finally releases?
It's funny because I guess I'd assumed it in tone it would have been closer to Elder Scrolls in space than Fallout in space. Like I thought it would be a little more serious.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because we've seen so very little, and unless there's information out that I'm missing, it seems like maybe it would be striking a very serious tone.
Also, like, it's funny because when I think of space games, I think of a more streamlined, smooth kind of graphical style, like Star Citizen or Elite Dangerous and stuff. Like space games have a certain look, or Mass Effect. But if I then take the like Fallout 76 or Skyrim graphical style and put it in space, it just feels weird and gross to me. Like, I don't know. I don't think it would look good. Some of the vistas in Skyrim obviously look good, so yeah, who knows? But
for me, I'm all about you get one, not a free pass, but you get like one bad game, but your next one better be good. So like
Sure.
Bethesda now is on the back foot with Fallout 76, so like their next game needs to be solid, or it's going to be a Mass Effect Andromeda into Anthem situation where now does anyone even care if BioWare makes a game? Like it's really that in a row really damaged the rep of BioWare.
yeah.
Right.
And now I think Outer Worlds enhances this for sure. Whereas, like Fallout 76 into their next game, I think the Outer Worlds being so great has made it even more urgent for Bethesda's next game to be a hit.
I
They're on the defense.
I totally see where you're coming from. I do think Bethesda is in a little bit of a different situation where we have Starfield, which is kind of this question mark, but then it's like we have the Elder Scrolls 6. Like they have this series to kind of fall back on in a way. And I think that is something that I want to bring up. Like the popularity of Skyrim is crazy.
Huge,
like
yeah.
that game was massive beyond belief. And so I wonder if there's just this sizable audience that like doesn't really care about the conversation, but can just latch on to that. I don't know.
I think the best comparison is Mass Effect. Like people are way more hungry for a Mass Effect remaster than a new Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Way more hungry for that. That would get people. I feel like it would get people more hyped than a new Mass Effect game.
You might be right. That's interesting.
Like the hype levels for that are big, and I think,
Yeah.
I think Fallout 4. I remember I liked Fallout 4. Fallout 4, I think, is a good game, but was the fandom there for Fallout 4? I know it's not really there for 76, but I feel like it was kind of on the downhill a little bit with 4. I think 4
it went down a little.
Like people like 4,
I've been
but
a Fallout fan since the beginning of Fallout, and like 4 was definitely the one where I was kind of like, okay, I'm starting to lose interest. I think.
Yeah, so
Starting to lose interest.
Yeah, I like Fallout 4 too, but there's definitely been a pretty explosive fan backlash against 4 and the decisions that they made, a lot with like how dialogue was handled and things like that. But yeah, and I get what you're saying about Mass Effect, but like just the popularity of Skyrim is so huge. But in a way, I also think that's worked against it, right? Where I think they've kind of just re-released Skyrim so many times that people are also sick of it. Like the worst case scenario, kind of in my mind for Starfield, if it's just the Bethesda formula in space.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you could kind of throw that at the Outer Worlds too. I see where they're coming, but I think just from Bethesda specifically and the spot that they're in, the lack of goodwill that they have, I think the Bethesda formula in space would really cause a lot of controversy.
Well, and I think that Fallout 76, was a technical disaster, but also Fallout 4 was sort of evidence that the Bethesda formula is starting to get, I think, a little tired. I think they need to not rest on their laurels, and they need to not just do Bethesda in space and do something at least a little bit new and interesting and like challenge their preconceived notions of, or the audience's preconceived notions a little bit, because it's like, well, obviously Skyrim sells huge numbers and is a huge success for them. I think that it would be a mistake on their part to just do Skyrim in space, because I think people after this amount of time do still want innovation and new things and not just a skinned Skyrim, Same goes with Elder Scrolls 6. It's like, I fucking love Morrowind and Oblivion, and then Skyrim just wasn't for me. I just didn't get into it for whatever reason. And I think largely that has to do with Dark Souls happening around the same time and me being like, oh, damn, like, and it just kind of ruined video games for me forever. But like, so there's that. But yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I want Bethesda to return to their former glory, I guess. Like I want 76 to be a distant memory, you know.
Right.
And like Doom is solid, but that feels still more like an id thing than a Bethesda thing, even though it feels like they just put it out, you know.
Right.
And yeah, so it's like I don't want to hate Bethesda. I don't hate Bethesda, but it's like I want Bethesda to start making good stuff again.
Right. It's funny because again, I think I can make another comparison to Blizzard here, and the sense that I kind of get from Bethesda is, I think at the height of Bethesda's powers, there was a lot of magic in, wow, I can't believe how big this world is, how good it looks. Yeah, like that kind of mentality. I think there was a lot of magic there. But not only that, like you had the freeform stuff, but then you also had like, oh my God, Dark Brotherhood. You kind of had people talking about individual moments. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were able to pull it off, I think, was really magical in a lot of ways. But as time has gone on, as that technology has gotten better, and as more competitors have kind of brought up, I think other studios are able to evoke those feelings while also adding more depth and complexity and more polish. And it's making Bethesda seem less and less impressive all the time.
Well, and older.
Right, and older.
Like
older,
out of date.
Older is actually probably a better way of saying it. Yeah.
Like when I think about Skyrim now, I think about how just out of date it feels compared to newer stuff, which obviously it's an old game, but like Fallout 76 feels identical to that. Yeah. It's like they didn't learn or change at all in the intervening years.
I wish Fallout 76 was that simple, but like...
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But even if Fallout 76 had come out and been good, to me it still would have felt a couple of years old.
Yeah, and that was a big part of the thing that I tried to make in my review is even if this was working perfectly, it's completely unremarkable.
Right. You're right.
But the fact that it does not work at all, is makes it even worse. But yeah, it's like, hey, even if this was flawless, this wouldn't be a great game.
Right.
And I totally agree with the sentiment that you're trying to say. But to bring that back to Path of Exile, and like it making me worried about Diablo 4 in a way, is it's like I'm liking Path of Exile so much because I feel like the ways in which it's challenging me are interesting. Mm-hmm. And that was something with Divinity Original Sin 2 that was so awesome to me. Is this is obviously taking a ton of inspiration from the past, but I also feel like it's trying in its own way to push things forward and to be interesting, and how combat plays out and how you interact with things, and like how you interact with your companions, and the fact that it's co-op. Like it felt both old and new at the same time.
Yeah.
And like the way that you're talking about Disco Elysium, and sometimes with these big companies, these companies that have inspired so much, like you want to see that same spirit in them. It's like, hey, I want you guys to like break the rules and break them well.
Which makes me optimistic about Starfield because there's a certain level of baggage that comes with a franchise.
Sure.
You know, so
I think it's a good point.
Having a clean start, like, this is the time, Bethesda, you have a blank canvas to kind of go wild. So
also,
hopefully that drives the passion, you know. Maybe they're
they're
just not as emotionally invested in the Fallout universe because they've worked on it for so long, you know.
Well, and also like speaking about space games too, like Star Citizen has been in the works for what, like 1 billion years, and like it's trying to be all things for all people, and like it's this huge thing, and it, you know, who knows what it'll be like when that game is done, you know, if it ever is. But like I'm really curious what Starfield, it's going to have to pick a niche, because I don't think it's going to beat Star Citizen at its game. And I don't think it's going to want to just be Elite Dangerous, you know? And so it's like, what angle are they going to go with? Like, is it going to be closer to a Mass Effect than a Star Citizen? Or is it going to be
Outer Worlds?
And like, if it's Outer Worlds, then it's like, okay, Outer Worlds already is Outer Worlds. Like, if it literally is just Skyrim split onto 5 planets,
right,
then I'll be disappointed, because like, I want them to shake it up and do something new and cool, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what to tell them to do, but yeah.
I agree.
But yeah, it's like when you're like what you said, when you're doing a mold, like Divinity Original Sin 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've played dozens of games that look like this engine,
Right.
but where that game sings is how complex it is and how much interaction you have, and like
it's not about the mold. It's,
Right.
It's smartly using a mold to launch
and like
its own thing.
and Disco Elysium is the same way, where it's like
Right.
it uses this familiar mold to subvert that mold in certain ways, and it's like that's what Bethesda needs to start doing.
Right. And
With their own mold, with the Bethesda style.
That's what's so fascinating about Path of Exile, and hearing the developers talk about it, like listening to the Path of Exile guy talk about at GDC. It's like, okay, he clearly identified he really, really liked Diablo 2. Why did he like Diablo 2? And you can kind of see the thought process of like, okay, I like that. I'm going to take that and build off of it. And I think that can be just so successful, where it's like, okay, this isn't just Diablo 2. Like you are doing your own thing.
Diablo 2 is pretty sick.
Diablo 2 is a sick game. I agree. Diablo 2 is a sick game. I kind of want to just do another playthrough of Diablo 2.
I actually was thinking about it. I was like, I've played this game like 6 times.
I know.
Maybe it's time to do it again. I don't know. I'm still mad at Blizzard. It's a complicated time for Blizzard right now. I don't know. Whatever.
Diablo 2, though, ye old Blizzard.
Yeah. That's Blizzard with a capital B. I don't know. Blizzard with a capital A.
Blizzard with a capital Chris Metzen.
Yeah.
Our last
With a capital Entertainment.
Our last email comes in from Christian. Salutations, allies. A recent report shows mobile game Mario Kart Tour has amassed around 129 million downloads in its first month, but only generated 37 million in revenue. This is nearly half the amount of their previous mobile hit Fire Emblem Heroes at around 67 million. With an IP as strong as Mario Kart, I would have expected greater numbers, and Nintendo's silence since its release signals to me that they may not be satisfied with the results. How does the panel feel about Nintendo's recent mobile ventures? Regardless of whether you play them or not, how will the successes or failures affect Nintendo's traditional games model on their consoles?
I hope it doesn't.
Yeah.
Keep it separate. Like nothing against mobile gaming.
Yeah.
But it's just so out of my mind that I have no eyes on it. I don't care about it personally.
I'm not offended by like the inclusion of unobtrusive connective tissue. Like let's go Eevee. You can go to the Pokemon Park and put your Pokemon Go Pokemon in there, whatever like that. I'm like, okay. And I kind of hope, because I played a good amount of, I set myself a goal in Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, and I achieved it and then never played it again. I got that tree house. And but like I kind of would be interested in seeing some kind of connectivity with what is it called? New Horizons? New Animal Crossing.
Oh yes, New Horizons.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be mad if like playing Pocket Camp feels like you're taking your character from New Horizons and going camping.
Yeah.
Like or something, like some kind of thing like that where you're like earning
Man.
things in New Horizons with the phone. Like that would be kind of fun, but not necessary. It can't be necessary.
I feel largely negative about a lot of Nintendo's mobile output. I don't think Mario Kart Tour is very good.
I don't
or
think anybody
interesting.
does.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think I went really hard in Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, but the more I played, the more frustrated I got with it. And
it became clear what it was.
Yeah, it became like a very frustrating experience. Or like things like seem cool for like a minute and then I burn out. Like, do you remember Super Mario Run?
I liked Super
Vaguely.
Mario Run.
I liked
That's
it
the
for
one I
like
liked.
I liked it for a minute, but like I don't feel any desire to like go back to
No.
it.
Yeah.
And so it like
Did you play that? You played the Fire Emblem one.
I did, yeah. And Fire Emblem Heroes I liked the best out of any of them.
Who hated it? Was it Bossman or Damiani? Or did
I
they both?
probably
I remember they
both.
got in like
I
a big
don't know.
fight about it.
I don't remember. But saying I like Fire Emblem Heroes the best, like even when I with Fire Emblem Heroes, I feel like I go with fits and starts, and there's some frustrating aspects to it where like I'm playing Luigi's Mansion 3 and it's like all smiles, baby. And I was like, the way Nintendo makes me feel on Nintendo consoles is not really how they're making me feel on mobile.
Because it feels like their desire to make money, like on a console, them saying like, hey, maybe you should go outside, is like, okay, Nintendo's worried about my health. Like they want me to go outside. Whereas on a phone, it's like, hey, you're out of play power or whatever. It's like, oh, Nintendo wants my money. Because they want, and it's like,
there's kind of this like nakedness to it that's a little gross,
a little weird coming.
I don't
out of
engage.
Nintendo.
I don't engage.
That's the thing. Like, it's a choice.
Yeah.
And
until I hear that one of them is an absolute must play.
Yeah.
Sayonara Wild Heart style.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm not against mobile gaming because there are a lot of mobile games I love. But like these feel like more gotcha-y than the mobile games I've liked in the past. Like I generally tend to lean towards. Like, I'll give you $5 if there aren't any microtransactions happily. Like I'll buy a game on a phone.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, we were talking about this with Path of Exile, but I think that's like a better situation for the consumer where it's like, hey, I want to give you money because I'm enjoying this so much, not that because I feel like I'm being manipulated into a system. It comes down to, I think, player sentiment in a lot of ways. And
it's like, there's a difference between even Pocket Camp, which I did enjoy for quite some time. It's like, there comes a point where an in-game build timer is very clearly just a money-making tactic, because it's like, okay, you could just pay money to make this go faster. That's not player enjoyment first. That's money first, right? Whereas like the games where you just buy it outright, it's like, oh, we just made a good game and want you to play it, and those can happen on any platform. Yeah.
Optimistically, I hope that Nintendo is just like figuring it out and that things get better over time. But
I'm not offended in the slightest. It's just not for me.
Yeah. And if there is connective tissue, keep it like the Let's Go Eevee version where it's just an optional thing that you can ignore completely and it has no bearing.
It was also a good game to do that in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Question though.
Although I guess technically the way of catching Pokemon was the Pokemon Go kind of way. So it did have its feelers in there. Sorry.
I'm definitely not the target audience because I don't game on the go really ever. I'm a very couch oriented.
You barely even play your Switch.
Yeah, and when I do play my Switch, I have it docked.
Cooey.
So my question is, in a post-Switch world, like, why pick your phone over your Switch if you just take your Switch places? You know what I mean? Mobile gaming.
I mean,
like,
if you don't have a
your
Switch, but
isn't your Switch mobile gaming?
I mean, like, I bring my Switch to the studio because there are sometimes we have downtime in the studio, and it's like, oh man, cool, the Switch is perfect for this. But it's like,
still kind of a production.
Yeah, there are plenty of times where like bringing your Switch will be a little bit awkward, and so it's like nice having something on your phone that you can use to like
kill 20 minutes.
Yeah,
cool.
Well, it's like I don't want to bring my Switch to the bathroom.
Or do you?
I'm coming in.
Where are we dropping?
It's usually waterproof, dude. Can you imagine switching in the shower?
Switching in the pool?
I'm really glad you said shower.
Switching the shower would be awesome.
I would not.
Because I love showers. I love showers. Like that 10 minutes a day, man. That is the best. Best 10 minutes
I'm
of the day.
envisioning this new Switch called Switch in the Shower, and you're in the ad for it, and the water's running, and you just turn around and you go, oh, I didn't see you there.
Oh, hi.
I was just switching in the shower.
Didn't hear you come in.
Love showers.
What was the original question? Mobile games.
Yeah, how do you feel about Nintendo's recent mobile ventures, regardless of whether you play them or not? How will their successes or failures affect Nintendo's traditional game model on their consoles? It doesn't seem like it's affected them too much.
Yeah, and hopefully it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like they keep those teams separated.
Like, gotta keep them separated.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also feels so disconnected from me. It doesn't even feel like Nintendo is developing these games. Who is?
They are not in some cases.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just it's just
that's probably how it should feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels very disconnected.
Though Luigi's Mansion 3 feels like a straight up Nintendo game, and I was informed that a different team made that, which I can't remember the name right now, but good stuff. They're the ones who made the other Luigi's Mansions, I guess. But I didn't know that.
You learn
Cool stuff.
something
The more you learn,
We
you learn something every day.
There's every day. Or in this case, a couple of days ago.
Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode of Frame Trap. Talked a lot about video games, as we always do. All video games this time.
Yeah.
But Watchmen Sunday.
Dude, Watchmen Sunday, let's go.
Ooh-wee.
Let's
Watchmen
go.
Sunday,
Only 6 more episodes, dude.
What was it, 9?
9.
9 episodes. Weird.
6 more.
I only saw the first one. I'm excited to watch the next 2, hopefully tonight.
If you would like to write in, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com, askeasyallies@gmail.com. If you want to get this mini podcast a couple days early, you can be a $5 patron on easyallies.com.
$5 foot.
And I have to end this episode by saying review copy provided by PlayStation. You got to have that at the front and the back.
Front and the back.
Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.